special features where the local municipality would also have the option to take certain measures within their ordinance that aren't specifically stated in the statute but are left to the discretion of the local municipality. One of those, which is specific to recreational marijuana, is that if, and this is not found also in the medical marijuana statute, but if a municipality institutes a hard cap on the number of recreational establishments, that is, they say you shall only have 2 retailers or 3 growers, or if there's a hard cap, then the municipality has to do a competitive process. And the statute says that the competitive process has to show which entity is best suited to comply with the act. And that's really all it says. So as you can imagine, municipalities have to develop this competitive process with very little statutory guidance to do so. And they have given a range of criteria that they feel may go to that question about which one is best suited to operate in the municipality and under the act. Those have tended to be, and it's no secret, that those tend to be the, tends to be an issue that's litigated a lot, because with the wide variation, and whenever you introduce discretion into a process, there's going to be a winner and a loser. And with recreational marijuana, there tends to be more money in play at relative, comparing it with medical marijuana. So there tends to be more motivation or means to have disputes, and which could result in litigation. So there are ways to, there's no requirement to have a hard cap. So there's a way to kind of avoid that risk. Some communities do it through zoning and buffering, which is, it goes through, each establishment goes through a special land use process, just like many of your other special land uses. And it's allowed in certain districts, and then there may be buffering that's done. You might say one retailer cannot be within X number of feet of another retailer, or within another provisioning center, or another establishment at all. So these buffers start to happen, and as if there are establishments that are approved, a buffer appears around that one. And so
Can
that's
I
all
ask a couple questions about that, Tom?
Sure.
What is the basis for, the legal basis that we would need to establish to use zoning buffers? I mean, what would a municipality have to determine to say we want them somewhere, some places, but not other places?
Right. Under zoning, determining which districts they go in, I think you have wide latitude.
So we can do it district to district. We have wide latitude. Just
That's
say
true.
no, because marijuana is different from any other retail operation, or I mean, how do you get to distinguish against one type of product?
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. So zoning. There's Michigan Zoning Enabling Act that provides the municipality the ability to zone as they see fit. So as long as the distinctions are reasonable under zoning, you can say certain uses are appropriate or not appropriate depending on the zone district. And those, really the test comes down to a reasonable test. But it's a legislative choice about where that happens, and courts tend not to interfere with a legislative choice because...
So theoretically, we could say no recreational marijuana sales in downtown, and that would be because we think they wouldn't be good for our town if sold there, and you think that would be a defensible standard so long as downtown was a zone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. As long as you treat uses consistently in that zone district, then if you have a reasonable basis to distinguish between them, you'd have wide latitude in the districts themselves. Yes.
And how about the buffering?
Buffer is the same reasonable. Those have been widely used by municipalities. Similar to, other uses don't quite do a buffer per se, but I think the intent there is to prevent, just like in zoning, when you zone anything, try not to have clusters necessarily of a certain one use that kind of all go together. And so I think the buffering has become a common method to make sure that uses that are substantially similar and could have impacts are far enough away from each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you, if it's okay.
Yep.
If you just take a seat for a second. We have to go through the preliminaries of starting the regular meeting, and then I'd like to bring you back, if that's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
So I'm going to adjourn the special work session. And I'm gonna wait till Scott tells me it's 7:30 and ready to go. Are we good to go?
Yeah, you might as well just go.
Go? Okay. Get my agenda. That would be useful. The regular city council meeting of Grand Haven City Council of April 11th, 2022 is hereby called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Lowe? Councilmember Cummins?
Here.
Councilmember McLaughlin? Councilmember Fritz?
Here.
Mayor McNally?
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Pastor Nate Burkholz of the Lakeshore Baptist Church is supposed to be here to deliver the invocation. Pastor Burkholz, are you here? Well, I'm 1 minute early. Now I'm at 7:30. I'm going to say that we're going to pass.
I volunteer today.
Come on up, introduce yourself, and
The pastor is supposed to, lead in prayer or something?
the pastor generally says a prayer to inspire good government. Let's say that.
There's nobody here to substitute for him?
If you want to, sir, you may, but if you don't want to, I think we will probably move on.
Well, okay, I want to. My name is Tom Fullerton. I'm originally from Grand Haven here.
Hey, Tom, come up to the
Gotta go-
microphone.
Come up to the microphone, please, yes.
Thank you.
Quick prayer.
Right to the microphone, right there, Tom. Right
Right
there.
there at the podium.
At the podium there.
Father in heaven, thank you for tonight. Thank you for Grand Haven. Thank you for everything you've given to us. Pray tonight for civil discussion. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tom. Okay, would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We have to start the meeting with the first call to the audience. Nope. We're going to move to approve the consent and regular agendas. Can I get a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion. Sure, there's any changes? Pat?
I did have a change about the cycle to Centertown, but without 4 votes, we can't add anything tonight, so I'll just be bringing that up under council or city manager reports.
Okay. thank you.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Did you have something?
A couple questions. Yeah, I mean, we don't also have 4 vote, well, you would need 4 votes to
The buy-sell agreement
pass the buy-sell.
for
So
CL.
was the
for CL.
buy-sell vote going to be removed from the agenda? We just have the presentation this evening?
I discussed that with Kelly today. The sale of real estate is required to be done by 4 votes after the resolution has been published for 30 days in the proceedings from council. So tonight could be an introductory vote, it would then be published as part of the council proceedings. It could be taken back up in 30 days, then you would need 4 votes at that time.
Ryan, have you got any views on that?
I trust that's the procedure. That's new, a little
Yeah.
different than I've
Mike?
heard before.
No, as long as that's the way, if
I have
it's,
to tell you, I would feel more comfortable with there being 4 votes to support even the first reading. And I'm happy to hear the presentation by CL Lakewood, and in fact, would very much like to do that and ask some questions. But I think we should vote on this at a later time when we have, if not a full council, at least 4 members present.
Awesome, if that's what we want to do. The representatives are here tonight, and they're ready to make the presentation, and that was really the meat of the matter, is to give you a chance to meet them. In the spirit of that same idea, if there are other items on the agenda that you're uncomfortable about, that you'd rather have more full participation, perhaps when we get to that item, if you think it's something, you can always table things. If you think that some of your peers might have strong viewpoints or would want to participate in that discussion, when that item comes up, you might want to bring it up and have a bit of a discussion about what the urgency is and if it's important that we tackle it tonight or if it can wait. So I just wanted to plant that seed, Your Honor, that...
I don't see anything on the consent agenda, and I guess I'd ask both other council members to review it and see if they've got anything that sticks out in that regard.
When I became aware of one of the council members having an illness earlier today, I kind of glanced through to take a look if anything was kind of met that criteria, Your Honor. The only thing I will say, the cycling event in Centertown, city manager's correct. We need 4 people to add that to the agenda tonight. But I'm hopeful that during the city manager's report this evening, when he raises that informally, at least, my fellow council members can at least give some feedback to the applicant. So hopefully they have some understanding of if there's some comfort level, potentially from a majority, to where they could at least start promoting it. Their event's in early May, and waiting 2 weeks is going to set them back.
So to add an event to the agenda, we need the 4th vote.
Right.
Okay,
But
yep.
hopefully we can at least informally give some feedback, so they can get started on that promotion piece.
Okay, and how about in new business? I think we can discuss those item by item. But is there anything else in the consent agenda that anyone sees that's problematic?
I have none.
Okay, so we've got a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Well, it's a motion to approve
Consent and regular
the whole agenda
agendas.
tonight as,
Right.
yep,
Okay. And there's a second?
yep, yes.
And
Okay.
just for clarification, were you removing that CL Lakewood agreement but not the presentation?
Yes. Is that,
It's just a presentation, isn't it?
right, well, it's just the presentation. There isn't a resolution. Is there a resolution, Pat?
Correct, there is.
I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, under the CL Lakewood, there is a resolution, but if...
We'll deal with that when we,
Yeah, if you wanted to table that until your next meeting when you would have all 5 members here, that's
right,
something you could
with
take up at that
apologies
time.
to CL Lakewood.
Yeah, but if they're here, we'd like to hear from them and have some Q&A.
Yep.
Yeah, the presentation's still
Right.
very valid, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on agendas? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fritz,
Yes?
Councilmember Cummins,
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Your agenda's approved.
Okay, at this time, we've got the first call to the audience. It's one of 2 opportunities. Members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the regular agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call in may dial 616-935-3285. If the phone continues ringing, please remain on the line until your turn. We will take all callers. Are there members of the audience who would like to address council?
Bob Manetza, 945 Washington Avenue, Grand Haven. Next week, you'll hold your annual meeting to discuss in detail the draft 2022-23 city budget. The city's manager's statement of budget detail, as posted, states that the Neighborhood Housing Services Department is being eliminated. I would ask that you carefully reconsider any decision to eliminate the service provided by the city to some of our more vulnerable citizens. In my years on council, I felt that establishing the neighborhood housing services was an important achievement and a point of pride for the community. It took a while to grow the service, which provided housing and mortgage counseling, assistance with grant-funded and low-interest home maintenance and repair, and generally helped many of our residents to get into their homes and stay in their homes. We have been recognized by state and federal housing agencies and have received accolades for our outreach. Over the past 5 years at least, the department has provided services to about 1,000 of our citizens. These folks aren't well-heeled tourists, snowbirds, or retirees chasing the myth of the quaint village. These are working men and women employed in our industries, retail and hospitality businesses, fulfilling their niche in the life of a small but complex city. Their kids attend our local schools, they worship in our churches, they patronize local businesses, service clubs, arts and entertainment. They line the streets for our parades and our celebrations. They're the bedrock of the community. Sometimes some of our local folks struggle to get into or maintain their homes. Neighborhood housing services help to support them. It has been and should continue to be a compassionate outreach by the city to a significant number of our residents. Closing NHS is a reflection of council's priorities and not a financial imperative. Closing NHS will not make much difference on the city's bottom line, as much as it has been. Much of it has been grant funded and has had a low impact on the general fund. Certainly compared to the number of residents served, NHS has been a very good deal. There are several other money-losing city activities that listed in the city manager's statement where much more money can be saved while impacting fewer people. It's been stated a number of times that housing is a regional issue and that municipalities need to work together on solutions. I don't disagree with that, although I do not agree that as a city, we may wash our hands of the problem, expect neighboring communities to take care of it, nor that we should suggest that those who have needed our help don't belong here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Manetza.
Hi, I'm Joyce Workman. I own Vintage Green. It's located at 7 North 7th, and I would just like to thank you for looking at Cycle Back to Centertown. Centertown neighborhood meets monthly. You have been, Mr. Fritz, we've not seen you, but would love to have you. We meet the first Friday of every month at Momentum Center at 8:30. As a neighborhood, we love meeting each other, working together. We're excited about having another event. Cycle Back will be Saturday, May 7th. We've invited the police to come at 11. They'll be talking with young families about bicycle safety. Rock and Road will be doing helmet and bicycle checks. We're going to have a swag stand so you can decorate your kiddo's bike for the Memorial Day parade. We just think it's going to be a great day to bring people downtown and to Centertown. Again, if you have any questions, I can hang around for a while, and you also know how to find me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Mayor and Council, my name is Warren Fite. My address is 21 Crescent Hill. Though late in the hour, I sent you all a letter I had drafted regarding the issue before you regarding the NoDoZ expansion. And I'm not sure, both by virtue of the fact that some of the council is not in attendance, and the hour was late when I sent it to you, but I would like to take a moment to try and get through the letter, and I'll probably do better reading it than attempting to paraphrase it. Dear Madam Mayor and City Council members, in reference to the addition and expansion of NoDoZ at the Bilmar, while I understand that the Mayor and Council are elected to represent residents of the Grand Haven community, further that the broad interests of the residents should be weighed against the benefit of commercial and private enterprise, especially when there are conflicting interests. Certainly we all want our businesses to be successful and add value in goods and services and revenue to our town, but preserving the public interest, especially when the enterprise encroaches on precious and irreplaceable natural features, should be a fundamental concern in representing the community. In consideration of the above, I want to voice my strong opposition to any further expansion of an already expanded NOTO's enterprise. Please understand that I think the folks at NOTO's are good people, and their improvements to date, which have already been expanded beyond the original proposal and what once was non-conforming status of the property, are a benefit to those who can afford to experience what they offer. But any further imposition on the ambience and the environment of our wonderful Grand Haven Beach should not be permitted. I have frequented that beach for sun and solace for many decades. In that time, it has become increasingly compromised. Added traffic, more parking, increased use and misuse. The expanded use proposed at NOTO's would only add to an already compromised beachfront. Private property rights are imposed to the south, expanded parking and facilities in the city parking lot, additional required law enforcement presence, tensions arising from the lack of parking, crowdedness, and amplified music from the restaurant, all degrade the quality of an already limited beach experience. As a final point, I would ask council to be cautious regarding the phenomenon of incrementalism. As a lifelong resident, I have observed this process over decades to great cumulative detriment to the livability and attraction of our city. As each incremental variance is rationalized as having only a modest impact, the cumulative result is more density, more height, more congestion, more traffic, and more police involvement. Our skyline is diminished. Folks can no longer see the sky over tall buildings, which now impose themselves over pedestrians. I'll be brief. Noise and light pollution now degrade the experience of residents and visitors alike. Please don't surrender to the false meme of growth as inevitable and desirable. Council decision-making needs to be made in consideration of what is optimal and sustainable, and not give in to pressure of economic expedience and private for-profit interests, which inevitably will ask for more of our waterfront. As Joni Mitchell warns in song, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They pave paradise and put up a parking lot. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Hello. Hi. This is to you as much as it is to you. My name is Bob Wood. I live at 15316 Kruger. And I'm going to talk for 3 minutes, and then Charity Sternberg, who is my student from a few years ago, is going to talk for a few minutes. For a month and a half now, the war in Ukraine's been going on. I mean, we've all sat there, we've watched it, and it gets worse, it gets worse, it gets worse. We don't know what to do. If we donate money, we don't know where it goes. I think we feel helpless, but not nearly as bad as those people who have relatives over there or those people that are on the ground over there. And so what I did is I went up to Warren, Michigan. Michigan's the 8th largest Ukrainian American population in the state, or in the nation. In Warren, Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee. I've been driving up there 2 times a week. I've been volunteering at Polish church food gatherings, at anything that you can do. I've been working and staying at the Hampton Inn. And these people are the real deal, man. They've got people that are dying over there. They spend every day checking to see how their relatives are. I see there's a sign out here that says, "Stand for Ukraine." My goal is to bring West Michigan to the UACRC, the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee. I have put together a really good flyer. I can't tell you how much I believe in these people and how much I trust these people. I want to do everything I can for them. I want you to be able to find some kind of empowerment in this, because this is as ugly as it can get, and it's not going to finish, and we need to support it. And what I'm asking, what I think would be wonderful, is if Grand Haven, Ferrysburg, and Spring Lake came together and worked on something in unison. In addition to, their number one issue is medical supplies. They collect medical supplies from hospitals, emergency clinics, doctor's office, dental supplies, sports medicine, women's health, police departments, fire departments, EMTs. They box those, they ship them up to New Jersey, and they're making flights out as we speak to Warsaw. They're trucked into Lviv, and then from Lviv, they're brought out onto the front. And they are saving people's lives. I think that it would be so cool if this community pushed together and came up with a unified response. I don't know what that is, but it would be really cool to sit down with people. You guys are the movers and the shakers of the community. You guys are the community. I've got contact here for you. I will give every one of you a flyer. You don't have to read it. I'm just going to leave it with you. Any of you guys that want a flyer can have a flyer. You can contact me. This is life and death, people. And those people that are up in Warren, Michigan, they're wonderful folks. And uncles and their aunts to live. Good thing. It's a good thing. Sherry, it's a good word. She is nice to.
Hi, everyone. 2009, so more than a few years ago. I live at 911 Slayton in Grand Haven. I don't know if I can talk for 3 minutes, but I'll try. So to kind of piggyback back what Bob said, I am just a mom who wants to help, just seeing what has been happening on the news, seeing moms and children, being displaced from their homes. It's emotional for me because I'm a new mom, so as you can imagine, it's hard to see that, and not to know if they're gonna go home, if there's a home to go home to. So yeah, we didn't know where to start in helping. So we found the UACRC of Michigan. We started attending Zoom meetings to get info on what they're doing for Ukraine. And that has helped us a lot to kind of get organized ourselves. So I had organized some physical donations to bring clothes, hygiene items, first aid. I just asked family, and we boxed it up, and Bob drove it down. So if more families could do that kind of thing, I think that would help a lot. So we're learning from the UACRC and have created a Facebook group to connect West Michigan to that group. It's the West Side UACRC on Facebook. So
That's the West Side UACRC.
Yep.
Ukrainian American
Crisis Response Committee. Yep. So we're working in conjunction with them. I think there's a lot of people who care and want to help and don't know how to help. And so that's kind of what we're doing. That's why we're here. We want to talk to the community, and so this is a good place to start if you don't know where to start. So, and then I believe it's uacrisiscommittee.org is the UACRC in Warren, Michigan. That is their website, and that's where there's details on what to donate, where to donate, what items are needed. There's an Amazon wish list that you can purchase items and send directly to their warehouse, which is great. So that way, your money is being spent on very specific items, for people on the front line who are fighting, people who are injured, for refugees, things like that. So I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both.
That scan will give you a video too. I learned how to do a QR code.
Oh, and this is Grover.
Grover's in the west side.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Erica Layton. Address is 17512 Ridgemore Court, 206. I am the new Executive Director of the Tri-Cities Historical Museum downtown. And as a new member of the community, I just wanted to stop by this evening and introduce myself to you and remind you that as a millage-supported
Sorry, that was the
You're
last
still
one.
good, Eric.
You're good.
Keep going.
Last is 2 minutes, or 3 minutes. No, just to remind you that as a millage-supported organization, we're here to serve the citizens of Grand Haven and the surrounding communities. We're here to serve and support, so my door is always open. I'm looking forward to working with you all in the future, and if there's anything myself or staff can do to help enrich the community further, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Thanks for introducing yourself and welcome to Grand Haven.
Thank you.
I think you're up, Jim.
Very good. Hello, Mayor and Council. My name's Jim Hagan, 400 Lake, and what I'd like to talk about is some of my concerns with the diesel project. And I'm very pleased that CL Lake Wood is here today, so perhaps they'll address some of these things. A little bit about the history was, for everyone, I think we know it, that BLP went out there. They got a bunch of proposals for projects. The winning project was Capstones, which was condos, 8 buildings, 2 condos per building, 32 parking places. And the previous council and mayor, I'm not exactly sure of what all the reasons were, but it went out for another survey, and the survey came back. Basically, one of the reasons I know it went out for a survey was people said, we don't want condos. And another reason was the diesel plant, people wanted to preserve it. So a different set came back. But what I've jotted down here is money left on the table. The original bid that came to BLP was $1.525 million. On the second round from Capstone, it went up to $1.95 million. That's $0.95 million that is left on the table from what the current buy-sell reads. We've got a $30 million unfunded pension liability, about a $30 million Harbor Island environmental cleanup facing us. And what I'm hearing is the $1 million is not important enough to go after. We want to do the $1 million deal. And then when I saw the notes yesterday, I looked and there's something called Annex B now. Annex B is, let me read it. I'm just going to read the first bit of it. Exhibit B, description of Project A. See attached proposal from CL Lakewood dated June 9th, 2021. B, provided, however, that buyer may modify the project to allow and include up to 5 residential condominium units on the southeast side of the property. Buyer shall have the right to develop residence on Sherman to the extent that they do not create a nonconformity with zoning laws and approvals. So what I read is, in this is, oh, we're going to do a condo project right away. There's nothing that prevents them. There's no sequencing set up between the projects. And if you guys are really serious about doing the restoration of the diesel plant, you need to have some kind of sequence built in. And that sequence should be that the diesel plant gets done to the extent necessary before the condo project is started. Otherwise, I foresee a situation where, since we also have the provision where this contract can be assigned to somebody else, it gets assigned to a corporation, they go ahead, they build the condos, they sell the condos, and then, just like some of the other projects, we've seen numerous projects go bankrupt, right? And we've seen projects where they said, we're going to save the building, and then we see the roof come off, we see the second floor come off, we see one wall, and then the other. So anyway, I do not feel that the buy-sell as it reads today should be approved, and I'm sure you've seen the email. And that explains more detail.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Pat, no one on the phone?
Nobody on the phone, Your Honor.
Then if, I'm going to ask Tom to come back up and finish his presentation.
Oh, wait, there's somebody coming on the phone.
Sorry, Tom.
Sorry, Tom.
Oh. Hang on 1 second.
Caller, go ahead if you could give your name and address, please.
637 Lake Avenue.
You can go ahead.
All right, just a quick comment in regards, I appreciate what the gentleman who just talked about the purchase agreement for the diesel plant. I'm in agreement there where we've got all of a sudden now a multi-use building that you don't have enough parking for. And so I was counsel that as of tonight, certainly always good to listen, but since you don't have 4 votes, I would like to not see anybody vote on it at this point and get more information. But I'm concerned that, once again, we're trying to do too much in one spot and trying to rush it because we think we might lose a buyer. It's a probably not the best attitude to have when you're a city. We do have resources, and I do think, I know we've worked on this on some points, but there may be some other ideas out there that need to be listened to. So anyways, I'm kind of glad that we don't have enough people to vote on today, and I'd like you to take a much harder look at what you're trying to put into that location, because an event center is just going to compete with our community center. A restaurant in that location, we already have traffic backing up every weekend in the summer from the state park, so just the traffic flow is going to be a problem. Condos may ultimately be the smartest thing, but there might be some public use that we should think about for that location as well. So anyways, that's my spiel for tonight. One more thing on Notos, they have to work so hard, that location, with how tough it is to keep it open in the winter with the snow, the sand, everything else, that if you are in a position to help them with a yes vote, I think it'll be beneficial. From what I saw, I don't think it'll be causing any harm to the neighbors, and it will certainly help them, because it's a tough road for probably at least 6 months of the year down there. So I would encourage you to consider a yes vote on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, looks like Mr. Noto, hang on one second, Tom.
Tony Noto, 1223 South Harbor, Madam Mayor, council members. Once again, appreciate your consideration for this proposal that we've kind of jumped through hurdles with, but that's what we're supposed to do. If it was easy, everybody else would be doing it. When we started this project, we went directly and transparent to the Highland Park folks to see if they wanted a restaurant, as I've mentioned in previous meetings. There was some boundaries that we needed to abide by. In 2007, the consent judgment that has been written was the guideline, and one of the things that we asked to do is to make certain that moving forward, we would have a fair lane to be able to travel with. So we came up with a new PD, and in that PD, there was an agreement between 3 parties, and that was between Howard. The original consent agreement was between Howard, Highland Park, and the city. So, and we abided by those agreements. But again, the letter some of the letters and some of the concerns that you have seen, I have basically a rebuttal for all of those. I think the main consent with the previous situation was that we needed to determine what we were actually building. And it's not a rooftop, it's a hospitality suite with a deck. So just as the same location that we have upstairs with that wall, it was the original in terms of how we were going to build that, but there was some leniency in terms of how we could actually build that, and so we decided to enclose it at that time. As I said before, we were just a little Italian family with only so much money, and if it was easy, everybody else would be doing it. We're not afraid to go through the measures to do what is right and what we think is best for our business. We've been in this business for 40 years, and as the previous caller said, they've seen the hurdles that we've done. We can show you pictures and photos of what the previous Bilmar was. When we bought the building, we didn't know we were going to tear it down, and we built the best that we could for the time that we had, for the money that we had. And we were able to get the framework best that we could, and now it appears that we have an opportunity with this pandemic being over, the labor shortage coming to an end because gas prices are going up. People are needing to fill their gas tanks and get a job. So we're working on that. We're not adding spaces, we're not adding seats. If you come and see us at Notos in Grand Rapids, we're a 43,000 square foot facility, and we don't use it all the time. We use different spaces for different things. And this hospitality suite, bridal suite, is exactly our neighbors. And again, with the consent judgment, we can go back to that and we can refer to that to see if there's anything that needs to be fixed. But we're here to ask for your support. So thank you very much.
And can I ask, I know this isn't origin, because one of the biggest things that it seems that neighbors are concerned about is there's a rooftop deck. Now, I know the deck isn't going to be on the roof, the main roof, but is it in fact over a roof of some sort?
No, it's an actual, and again, let me remind everyone that the original consent agreement was written for the building that Howard was proposing to build. And that building was going to be larger, and it was going to be moved forward more closer to the water. We kept to the footprint, the exact footprint, because that's what the city required us to do. No rooftop. So this is what they're assuming that would be a rooftop on top of the second floor. And so now what we're doing is basically enclosing the upstairs with a hospitality suite that happens to have a porch so I can write my 3 books to get some notoriety for Grand Haven someday, and to do some better things for this community as well. But it is not a rooftop. The attorneys for the city, I believe, have determined that it is not a rooftop, but it's simply a deck. And that's what it is. If we are building up on top, and again, we have pictures of the previous Bilmar with mechanicals showing to the neighbors. There are trees blocking the view as well.
What's directly below the deck you want to install?
Our patio. Oh, the bar. The patio bar.
Is below?
Yes.
With a roof above it or not?
Well, there's a ceiling, in terms of what that is, so it's a second floor.
Okay.
And actually, we would have proposed to extend from the west, but with the DEQ Eagle, there have been more hurdles for us to achieve to be able to do that. So this is the least amount of, building or view disruption that we could possibly do. If you're coming from the south with windows and with the right types of things that's going to enhance that look, it's going to look 100 times better. And again, we're committed to cleaning up the area best we can. Again, spring cleaning.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Noto?
I'm Tom Noto, 1223 South Harbor. I'm the brother. And just to clarify, it's not the deck thing is really just the second floor. We're not increasing the footprint on anything. It's just going straight up the walls, and it was intended to be a steel roof over that open balcony for probably a better description of what that is. It's more of a second floor balcony. It's going to be directly on top of the bar. That's the outdoor patio bar that's down below. And then the hospitality suite is like directly behind that. I mean, I guess we could make a change and we could just close that all in and just have an open window in the front and make that all part of the suite. But we never asked for more occupancy. We're not looking for that. Like my brother said earlier, even in Grand Rapids, we have different spaces for different uses. And some of those uses can't be used simultaneously with the other space that's adjoining that, unless it's a pass-through with the same group and the same number of people.
All right.
I think that's our biggest thing. And we're not encroaching on any more sand or beach area. It's, like I say, just directly above the walls that are already built. And just to kind of put things in perspective, not only have we had the hurdles of having to buy an expensive piece of a restaurant and tear it down and rebuild it with all the amenities that it has, with the elevator, with all those things, and drainage and sewer lines that actually worked and electrical systems that actually work. But we've been open a little over 1,100 days, or I shouldn't say that. We opened a little over 1,100 days ago when our first day open was. And the state of Michigan report with the COVID restrictions and shutdowns, we've been shut down or restricted for 430 some days, and it's really probably like 480 some days because we still haven't been able to open 7 days a week because of the labor thing. But again, we're not asking for more. So that doesn't have anything to do with parking. It's not a rooftop deck. It's a second story balcony, and that's that. It's roofed over. There's no noise, overflow. It's really just really well contained. And as far as traffic and everything there, I mean, we spent a lot of time out there on Sunday afternoons and whatever during the construction project. In the summertime, when you get to July, August, September, there's always traffic there. There's always congestion there, and when we weren't even open. So that's just part of being in a resort town. You know, there's good things for the residents with that, and there's some things that they probably don't like, but that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Tom, it's your turn. Thank you. Just for members of the audience who may have come in.
3 minutes?
Pardon?
There's somebody on the phone.
Oh, yes, there's somebody on the phone. Thanks,
Oh,
Ray.
geez. Sorry, Tom. There's someone on the phone.
Caller, if you could go ahead and give your name and address, and then you can have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, excuse me. My name is Laureen Birdsall. I am an attorney representing Lori Kelly. My address is 2663 44th Street, Wyoming, Michigan. I'm calling in just to give council an opportunity to ask me any questions if they would like concerning the Nodos property.
Well, this would be the part during the meeting where you're welcome to make any comments you'd like to make, so you can feel free to make any comments.
Okay. Well, my comments would be that, in fact, the information being provided with regard to the roof is incorrect. It is, in fact, a roof that the deck and the balcony would be constructed over, and the consent judgment that is at issue does not limit the roof discussion to a second-story roof. It specifically states roof, period. So it really doesn't say second story, first story, it says roof. And the balcony deck is 855 square feet as currently proposed, with sliding glass doors leading out to it from a proposed conference room / bridal suite, which would invite public use. So that is an addition. The conference room bridal suite is an addition from the original footprint contemplated in the consent judgment. That addition, combined with the proposed deck, would require a modification to the consent judgment and would require, that modification would require agreement from all interested parties who are successors in interest to the original consent judgment.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Hang on 1 second. Okay, thank you very much. Tom, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be very brief anyway. So I think where we left off, we talked a little bit about competitive process as it pertains to the recreational or adult use marijuana. And if there's a hard cap, then you need to have a competitive process. If there's no hard cap, you do not need to have a competitive process. One of the goals was to talk about potential risks of...
Can I ask?
Yes.
If there's not a competitive process and you have buffers, how do you decide who gets them?
There's a couple ways. One is first come, first serve. And some communities have done that where it starts a line at a certain time when the applications go open. A number of others have used a lottery system where there's a window that's open and anybody who's interested puts their name into the lottery and then they're taken in the order that they're drawn. And a number of cities have done that.
And either of those works? I have seen a couple of lawsuits that were based on the first come, first serve, but I haven't seen any lawsuits based on the lottery.
The lottery, and there's actually a case, a federal case that kind of says, yeah, the lottery is a legitimate way to do it. It says there's no really other way to do it that's fair. Yeah, there can be some practical problems with first come, first serve because when the window opens, there could be people
jostling
in line or doing, sure, all kind of, you can imagine. So, but we have seen the lottery system work for what it's worth.
Then I'd be interested in, if you can, discussing the existing medicinal permits with regard to the potential future recreational permits. Are they separate and distinct? Are they combinable? Are they entitled to special consideration?
It depends on how you want to regulate those, and I'm assuming, I'm not assuming that you're going to pass something or not. I'm just saying if that's what happens, you can. The state treats certain medical uses and adult use uses as what they call equivalent licenses, and that they can co-locate at a singular location. So on the medical side, you'll have a provisioning center, and that's kind of the retail. That's the outward facing. For recreational, it's called a retailer. Slightly different names, but similar use in that's where people buy product. And the other ones are grower is a grower, and a testing facility is a testing facility. They're named the same thing, but they can reside in the same building. So in some communities find that having them co-locate is actually good because it consolidates the number of facilities that could potentially come about. But to answer your question, no,
the
there's
permitting process. How does the permitting? How does that work? I get that you could consolidate uses, which kind of makes sense, but the permitting for who gets the recreational permits?
Presuming that any new recreational would be buffered from any other either medical or adult use, the person who holds a medical would have a buffer around them immediately.
And so they already have a place to open.
They have a place to, yeah, as a medically. Now, and nothing can come within, would be able to come within their buffer. Now, if they wanted to open up as a recreational shop, for example, that's a separate license. It could be separate at the city. It should be separate at the city. What zoning process they go through, there's a little discretion there of whether is a recreational use so different from an underlying medical use that you'd want them to go through a special land use process. And that's an option that some have done. Yeah, so let's see. Did that answer that question?
I think so.
Okay.
What I'm trying to figure out is, if you have a medical permit and you get a buffer drawn around you, that limits where you can put the recreational as well. Is that true? Does it by necessity, or does it by?
It'd be by ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But if you're treating all of them similarly,
because of the equivalency of licensing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yep. I think I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. I was just going to go over some of the potential risks. One is kind of attributable to any business, which are zoning appeals. These are potentially would be special land uses, which requires a decision by the Planning Commission. And whenever you have a discretionary decision, we just have to make sure that your Planning Commission, like it probably always does, is supporting their decision with material, competent, substantial evidence on the record, so that any of their discretionary decisions comply with the ordinance and your zoning ordinance. I was going to talk a little bit, we've had some experience with the doing nothing, or not continuing not to allow it if there's any risk regarding that. I can talk briefly about that. Just have some anecdotal experience. Under the recreational, there's a couple ways that a citizen initiative can be started that can propose an ordinance of whatever language that they choose, whichever language would come to you, that could potentially get on the ballot for a vote. You know, there's kind of a mixed bag of that. You know, even the state statute was a citizen initiative. So sometimes the drafting of it is not, it wouldn't be exactly what you would want to see or your neighbor would want to see, but maybe it would be. But, you know, then there's kind of that lack of control. You don't get to, you know, tinker with the language once it comes in. And if it's, you know, creates litigation risk for the city, there's nothing you can, you know, there's nothing that can allow you to change the language. So
Is the initiative process the same as the city's initiative process, or is there a smaller number of signatures
a
required?
smaller number.
Do you know what it is? Is it the 5%?
I believe it's 5%.
Yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
it's like 5% of whoever voted in the last gubernatorial election?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, there could be multiple paths.
So
They could
to
either
get
use the
it on the
statute or-
ballot to stop marijuana, you need the city's, you need the 15% of the total number of votes.
Compel you to say no?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
But
so
to
it's a
get
different-
marijuana, you need 5% of a much smaller number.
It's a much smaller number. And there may be, now there's like some statutory language limiting what they can tell you to do. It gets a little technical at that point, but the question is, could they use your charter process as well as the statutory process? And I've had some experience with it. The language, it can be trying at times. When you don't have control of what it can be, and someone may be drafting it who doesn't see all the legal pitfalls that they're drafting into it, maybe on accident, you know, you kind of just then have to deal with it. And if there's any part of it that's you think is illegal, actually, unfortunately, you can only challenge that after the election takes place and the thing is in place, which is kind of a strange wrinkle. You can't challenge it on the front end, you know, so. And I think that's going to wrap up. As far as the detail, I think would be good to talk about, and but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, or any follow-up questions afterwards.
I think we're likely to get you back anyway, but Mike, have you got questions?
No, I'm just listening, taking
Okay.
it all in. Hopefully everybody else has
Ryan,
been listening
anything?
too.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Tom, I appreciate you coming. I'm sorry that we held you through 2 or 3 meetings at this point, but
That's okay.
I look forward to seeing you again.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I need to make a public announcement at this point, or Ashley's going to kick me, which is, it's Pat McGinnis's birthday. And we would all like to say happy birthday to Pat. And I would like to tell everyone that's interested, there's cake out in the lobby. I'm not going to break the meeting, but if anybody wants, Pat has a hat, good. And I'm going to pretend we sang happy birthday to him, all right? But Pat, happy birthday. Thank you for your service to our city. Thank you, Ashley, for arranging cake, which everyone loves. And I'm just going to let everybody know, please, there's cake out there if you're able to avail yourself of it. Okay? Okay.
Happy
Looks like-
birthday.
You want to sing, Mike?
Yeah, I always like to sing.
All right, Mike would like to sing, and he's
If
gonna
everybody else
lead us.
wants to join in, we can sing happy
right.
birthday to Pat.
Everybody
It'll be all
ready?
good. No, that's always embarrassing. To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Patrick. Happy birthday to you.
All right, it's official.
There we go. Now it's official. Thank
right.
you.
Next, go ahead.
I always sing happy
You always sing? It's good to know.
Third time today Mike sang it to me.
I just had
Mike had a birthday on Friday.
Should we be singing to Mike as well?
Yeah.
He went to opening day at Tiger Stadium. Right?
I did not go.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I had to work. That's why it's a Friday, and it's hard for me to get to meetings on Friday, because I was heard tonight I didn't make it at 8:30. Well, usually my shop opens at 8, but I have cars that have to be out.
Had to be out.
And
Well, the Tigers did win on your birthday.
I was.
They also won on my birthday.
So that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all we need to know.
I'm going to say we're moving on, if that's
Thank you.
okay. And we're going to move on to the CL Lakewood presentation, if that's possible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys were here when I announced this, and I'm sorry, but we have two council members out tonight, one by design, but the other by illness, so it limits to some extent what we're in a position to do.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm very glad to be here tonight. My name is Nathan Watson. I'm from LaSalle, Illinois. I represent CL of the CL Lakewood team. It actually stands for CL Real Estate Development, one of the companies of CL Enterprises. And we're going to introduce ourselves real briefly. We have a brief presentation and be happy to answer any questions that you might have or that citizens have raised to you that you'd like to ask to us. Be happy to answer those. Once again, I'm Nathan Watson with CL Red, and this is Kyle Ingbers.
Kyle Ingbers, Lakewood Construction, resident of Holland, frequenter of Grand Haven. We have quite a few projects currently going on in Grand Haven. We've been here in the city a very long time from a builder standpoint, worked on many iconic projects. And in this one, I'd have to tell you, it would be quite a crown jewel. This would be a lot of fun to get to sink our teeth into. So,
yeah, thank you. And let's see. So we'll go on to the next slide. And who's doing the clicking? Is it clicker or I can? Oh, I can do it. Okay, excellent. I can click. All right, very good. Thank you. Introducing our teams again, Lakewood Construction is a prolific West Michigan builder. Has been in business a very long time. You all have seen their signs here in Grand Haven. They've done some significant buildings, which we'll talk about a little bit. CL Real Estate Development is an Illinois-based company, but we also have a Michigan office that we've opened several years ago in Hillsdale, Michigan. Both of our teams are highly committed to high-quality, transformative projects in small towns. And I'll tell a little bit about CL Red in that regard in a second. Lakewood, here's one of their notable local examples, which is the Gazillion and One building at 128 Columbus, and I know they have others also in their portfolio. You can always just go to their website and see their excellent work product there. And we're very glad to have them as a partner in this project. I'll talk a little bit about that. We met Lakewood many years ago, and we first opened up our office in Michigan working on a project, and we're very impressed with them. They have an excellent reputation. They're highly professional, honest, transparent general contractor and construction manager. And we formed a joint venture for this project when the city, actually the BLP, issued its first RFP back in 2020. And of course, that was a lengthy process that went through a couple of iterations, and we've been working on it for almost 2 years now. And we're very excited about the project and remain just as excited about the project today as we were when we first saw this opportunity introduced to us by Lakewood Construction. So we're delighted to be here to talk about our interest in this project and why we hope that we can present the best opportunity, and we have presented the best opportunity for the redevelopment of this site, which is the best for the city, as well as a sustainable economic development project. So a little bit about CL Red, CL Real Estate and CL, all these companies. It's a family of businesses run by Peter Limburger and Inga Karas, a couple who have decided to focus their investments not on Wall Street, not on the foreign exchanges, but in Midwestern, primarily small Midwestern towns. We are from a small Midwestern town, LaSalle in Peru, where Inga's company has a 150-year industrial heritage of great success with zinc smelting and chemical manufacturing. It was her great-grandmother who formed Karas Chemical, which is still in business today, and which she runs as chairperson of the board. Peter is a German entrepreneur, married Inga about 12 years ago when they met in business in Germany. Didn't do a merger or an acquisition, just got married, and he moved over here, is now a U.S. citizen, and they work on these projects together. It involves agriculture, 2,300 acres of the world's best farmland in Illinois. Aviation, we have FBO businesses in 6 towns and are growing our aviation business, small charter flight schools, aviation mechanics, avionics. Hospitality, a commercial craft brewery, and manufacturing with wood products. I think I listed all those, but all these different things they bring to communities, and oftentimes there are these corollary opportunities that come about from when one of our entities moves to a town, whether we open up a brew pub or we open up an FBO and a local airport, that brings other opportunities because we build relationships where we go. So that's kind of the overall, probably more information than we really have time for. And these are some examples up here of some of our projects. We are in the hospitality business. We have 4 open, really high quality brew pubs, restaurants with breweries in them, the Lone Buffalo in Ottawa, the Lock and Mule in Lockport, Hangar 2 in Glenview, and we're working on the Rocket in LaSalle, and we also have Keg and Colonel in DeKalb. These are all small, with the exception of Glenview, all relatively small towns, some of them smaller than Grand Haven, and not with the same tourist impact that you have here. And many of these are in historic buildings, but always design is the first thing that we focus on, high quality of design. And we preserve historic buildings when we do it, which makes the buildings more special. And you'll see from this next slide, we're working in Michigan on the Kiefer House Hotel, which is under construction right now in Hillsdale, Michigan, a town of 7,000 people. We're doing a 34-room boutique hotel, $14.5 million project. We also worked with the city TIF district to renovate their single-screen historic theater, the Dawn Theater, into this beautiful building you see up here. And some pictures of it on the right. So we're in the events business as well. That's already open. The hotel's still under construction, and those things that'll follow later this year or early 2023. And you've seen our development concept, so just kind of reiterating those things. Our development concept, let me do this. All right. Our development concept here is primarily an event center with the possibility of a restaurant and office space. That's the primary uses of this historic building. But the first elements of our development concept are preserve the historic building. Wherever we go, we focus on these jewels of architecture that we don't do a good job replacing today. These are the reasons people love Grand Haven, are because of significant architecture. Buildings like this one, obviously the community values these things. Homes around this area, it's just the history of the area defines the quality of the community, and it's a very good thing to preserve historic buildings. This one's an iconic building with dramatic exterior construction, these fantastic clear span space, important history in the community as a power plant, and these great big windows that have the opportunity for view creation. And so the site plan shows the various parts of it. We take a light touch to development. That is, we do not want to change the building that much. We want to open it up and clean it up and make it accessible to as much as possible to as many people as possible with the uses that we've determined for the building, and also obstruct less and have less impact on the neighbors by basically keeping it exactly like it is and only adding minor things to it to make it function better. There is a possibility for office space in there, which might replace some of the restaurant space. That's why we would need a due diligence period to finalize all those decisions about what the mix of that would be. We've defined the general use. We expect it to be largely like we presented, if not exactly like it, but we will refine that as we finalize details of letters of intent and tenancy and that kind of thing. And I think you all might be aware of some of the discussions that are going on about the possible need for office space and the like. So we're good at these event spaces, and we're really excited about this. We think this will be one of the most unique event spaces in certainly Southwest Michigan, if not Michigan entirely, and not far from major cities. Okay, but our goal again is to maintain the historical and industrial character of this building. We did talk about the possibility of adding some condominiums, but to answer a question that was raised earlier, we are not in a hurry to do that. I fully expect we will finish this building before we move to anything else. It's really just preserving land value and land utility, and it will have to go through a city planning process, so we would certainly submit to that as we have to, but it just makes sense to do that anyway. So you can see our plan here, more detail on that. We won't go into more detail because we've already talked about that. Inspirational images, the American Icon Brewery is in Vero Beach, Florida, And it's one of the inspirations for this project, and the interest in it is this the reuse of these fantastic, at least one of these fantastic diesel turbines as a backdrop for an events and hospitality space.
What I'd love to add there is I was in that restaurant in January, February of 2020. Within probably about a week of the proposal coming across. And when I saw the image that we started with, that's what was on the cover of the RFP. And I sat there at my desk and I'm like, oh my goodness, what a similarity to where I just was. And when I looked up the history of both buildings, they were built within a few years of each other. They likely have engines that were just about the same. We've spent some time with a manager there, the owner, the developer of that parcel, to try and grab and glean some lessons learned. And they were pretty excited to kind of hear what we were doing, because they just thought that was really just a special thing of seeing how that was developed and how this could provide that same vibrancy, that same excitement that American Icon brought to that area. It's a bit of a rundown area right where that restaurant is, if you ever get a chance to go. It's right along a railroad. In where this one is, it's not a dilapidated area, it's not a rundown area at all, but just imagine the vibrancy that the renovation can bring similar to this. Whether it ends up being exactly a restaurant that looks just like that or not, it's going to bring the excitement of an old historic building, a jewel in downtown Grand Haven. Seeing some of these engines not actually come to life from a usable standpoint, but come to life for people that weren't able to experience those when they were in operation.
And so, in summary on the community benefits, we're looking to save and preserve a significant historic Grand Haven asset. We are all about that. Someone mentioned there's nothing that keeps us from in a few years from demolishing it. I can say if that were even a single thought, we would not participate in this project. Our goal is to preserve that building and to make this project a huge success. And the only way it's a huge success is if we make that space a voluminous community and private event space. And so we're really excited about that. We think it'll add such vitality to the community and a venue the community does not have, and will set the community apart from others as well, give the community pride. We do take a light touch to redevelopment because historic buildings are delicate, so we will preserve it and make it like it is, but better. It'll look just like it is. There'll probably be some pieces and parts we have to replace, like windows and things like that. But those will be just like the new ones, just like the old ones in every regard. We want to open the building up for community enjoyment. We know that this type of project creates jobs, so it would be a significant job generator. It also is an annual sales tax generator. It creates a year-round presence for the building instead of something that's just seasonal, whether it be condos or whatever. People living here is a few months a year. This is activity, and that will happen year-round. And so we're really excited to be part of this project. We believe this project, as we've designed it, is complementary to the surrounding area, Mulligan's Hollow. And we'd like this building to remain part of Grand Haven's rich architectural and cultural history, and even grow from that. People raise some issues about parking, and parking is always a concern. We hear this question every time we go to a community, and I want to take you back to those 4 restaurants with 2 or 3 more that are planned for the next 2 years, and I would say in not one of them do we have a parking lot. Not a single one. But we are really concerned that our patrons have a place to park. And generally speaking, in downtown areas, that works its way out because people don't expect to come to downtown and it is not reasonable to expect people to come downtown and park right in front of every single shop they want to go to. When they go to Walmart, they park in the parking lot and walk a quarter mile. So downtown, that's a pretty normal thing, and actually it encourages pedestrian traffic, so we think that's a good thing. But there are complementary parking areas. We show in a 5-minute walk and a 10-minute walk what parking areas there are. There's quite a lot of it, And as a company policy, we do not want to tear things down to build parking. The fact is, parking lots, in particular, surface parking lots, are a drain on the community's resources. It's a lower intensity use, it's a lower value use, and it's also ugly. It creates these gaping holes in the fabric of a community. I don't know the history of the community that well, but I would have to venture that a lot of the surface parking lots that are in the area used to be nice buildings, and they're not anymore. And so we think there's a better way, which is a more creative way to provide parking. So if we want to provide our patrons who are generally meeting on weekends, on the evenings, which is generally your non-peak time for businesses and your non-peak time for the beach, closer to where we are, then that's incumbent upon us to do that. And so we can explore very creative and agree to very creative ways to provide parking needs through shared parking, through parking leases, through remote parking, and shuttles. All these things are things that we can work on as we identify there's a parking problem. As it is, we don't know that we have a parking problem. There are large parking lots in the immediate vicinity close to the property we think will meet the needs, but if they don't, or if there's a lack of confidence in that, that's something that we can address and we'd be happy to. And for traffic, I don't need to be a little repetitive about that, but the traffic count on the drive there is significantly high during the peak times. Most of the time it is not. If we're doing an event that has 300 people, which is probably the largest event that we'll have ever, 300 people, that's 150 cars. 150 cars maximum is a drop in the bucket on the traffic count. It really doesn't arise to a point of concern. However, traffic studies can be done to verify that. But I just don't think that's it's not like we're not generating an arena that houses 1,000 people for an event. It's people coming in groups and parking and then walking. So I don't think it'll add much traffic to the area. If it's office and event space, which is the likely combination of uses, those are complementary as well. So they don't double up. Your offices are not meeting when you have events, those kinds of things. Anyway, I'm kind of belaboring parking. I know it's a concern that comes up in every community we work on. But just in summary, we're just really happy to be here. Be happy to answer any questions you have about our proposal or the buy-sell agreement. I have that. We're ready to open up if you have any questions about that as well.
I would love to add one small thing. Another comment we've continued to hear, and I think it's worth talking about, is competition with the city's event space up in Mulligan's Hollow. I really believe that turning the diesel power plant and what that can be inside would be such a different space. It would be attracting a very different client. We're working with an event operator right now in Saugatuck. We have the roof going on right now, and they already have 100 weddings booked. Those people are from Chicago, those people are from up north, those people are from closer to Detroit. A lot of them are coming from other areas into the city of Holland. They have an event venue as well, and then now one coming to Saugatuck. The one in Holland, I think they have 3 years booked, something close to that. It's bringing significant economic activity to these townships, to these cities year-round. It's huge, and there's a huge desire for it right now. So we'd love the opportunity to chat with you more on that, but it's not the people that are coming to rent the city's event space. No offense to what you have, it's just a very different caliber than what this diesel power plant could become.
Brian, you got questions?
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you being here. It has been a long journey for you. You've lived every bit of it, and so it's good to have you in front of us tonight and see your presentation and hear your passion and the kind of work that you do. So I appreciated hearing that. For me, because we're at the point where we're like, okay, we have a buy-sell agreement in front of us. I want to make sure that what we're hearing today is I'm comfortable that language is in our buy-sell agreement. And I'm a little concerned still that maybe that language and I'm not saying I don't trust you, but I have to go based on what's on paper, because that's what you're gonna go by at the end of the day too. Before I get into a couple of those pieces, I do want to touch on something that you touched on it, but I want to make sure that our communities hears this loud and clear, because our Board of Light and Power has expressed interest in office space in that building, and our council has previously told them that if they have that interest to engage with you folks, to have a conversation about what they believe their space needs are, and whether or not you have any ability to make it work. And what I heard at our planning commission meeting was that if the Board of Light and Power had office space in there, it sounded like you weren't going to be able to do the restaurant. It would be just the office space and the event space, but the restaurant piece would probably not occur. Is that accurate still? Is that what you're kind of seeing at this point?
Yeah, it would be tough with the demand that they have for, I physically walked with David Walters through the entire building and talked about pretty intimately what they need and what they would put in there. It would be really difficult with their demand to accommodate both a restaurant and an event space. So either one of those would have to flex away. We would rather see the restaurant go and the venue stay, just because that becomes just a really wide open space to really kind of experience the vast the vast aesthetic appeal inside, but that would be up for discussion. The last I've heard from them, it wasn't the strongest candidate for them.
Okay. Shift away from the building for a second. The other pieces to your proposal, and it's kind of morphed a little bit over time. Initially, there was some kind of behind the building. You kind of had a section where you were thinking maybe you could fit some additional parking in. Now it sounded like maybe you're thinking that maybe it might be. I heard you at the planning commission meeting. You thought that might be kind of tight from a parking perspective, but that you feel like there might be some condo opportunities that you're considering. Can you kind of touch on some of those and what you're thinking?
So the space where you're talking about is where the transformers sat on a pad up there, and what we showed previously here tonight, it's some possible outdoor event space. It would be really difficult, you're correct, Ryan, that to come off of Sherman and turn down into that space, I think it would be a little bit unsafe, just from a flowability of traffic coming in and out of there at a busy time. I think it'd be really difficult. What would lend itself really well to the grades there would be two-story condos. You'd have a story down below, very similar to what you have next door. We've talked, could you fit 5? Maybe. But again, that's going to be down the road. We just didn't want that opportunity to not be available in the future. Understood we'd have to go through planning and zoning, and we talked about that at the planning and zoning meeting, right? That, hey, this isn't just a given. We'd have to walk through and make sure we comply with all of the rules and regulations and ordinances at that time. We just wanted to make sure we preserve the opportunity.
Okay.
Does that answer your question there?
No, I think that's clear.
Can I just ask one then?
Sure.
So where did the number 5 come from? Because initially there were no condos, I thought, right? And then I thought there were 2 or 3, but now we're up to 5. So I get you want to preserve the right to put in 5, but my general sense has been when someone wants to preserve the right, it's because their plan is to use the right. So is 5 your is 5 a requirement?
5 would be our preference. I don't recall a time where we issued a statement showing 2 or 3. You're correct that in our initial proposal, we did not have any. We just showed outdoor event space. It was through some meetings with members here of staff that we talked about that opportunity of having townhomes there. It was in the same discussion that we were talking about the increase in purchase price. And that was an opportunity for us to be able to increase our purchase price, to have the opportunity of building some townhomes there, to create more profitability, to be able to make the purchase price go up. That was really the driver behind it. If we're able to go back to our original offer, we would allow the townhomes to walk away and not go in. Does that make sense?
That answers the question.
Okay.
The townhomes are a requirement.
At
the current price.
With the current price.
Yep,
That is
got it.
very correct, yes.
Yep.
But none of that changes the fact that you may, under the ordinance, not be able to have them, right? I mean,
Understood.
that's still a city process that we have to go through. So we're not precluding any decision-making of the city public.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if you gentlemen have discussed it with our staff. I don't know, is anybody aware, you're going in based on current zoning, I think it's waterfront 2, there's no plans for a planned development, rezoning here, or anything like that at this point, no requests for?
No, and that's what we talked about, the planning and zoning meeting. When I stood before them, I said, we're not coming to you with any variances or requests of changes. We are in full compliance, and we talked through the dimensions and the heights of the building and the height of what we'd like to propose up on the roof.
Okay.
If that comes together. I think probably the biggest issue with setbacks we need to work through is the front yard in establishing where that property line is. There's a desire to have it within 3 feet of the building, which I can respectfully disagree with, but if that's what's desired, our stairs will have to come out into the public right away.
Okay. All right, so my biggest piece with all of this, I expressed this some months ago, and I hear your passion for saving historic, buildings and making them into, activating those spaces and low impact redevelopment. I appreciate those concepts. In fact, your parking views, I share them in a lot of ways. I really do. So some of the parking concerns aren't my biggest concerns here. My biggest concern here is doing what I think our community, for the most part, is loudly said to us they want, is that for that building to be saved, if at all possible, right? And so I hear your plans to do that tonight. My concern is getting back to the agreement that you have a 3-year construction window. Some of the pieces where, hey, if we don't finish it, then there's some penalties in place. You've taken some of those pieces out. The right of first refusal language kind of took out that, hey, if we can't maybe do this project like we're saying we can do it, and maybe save that building, that you could buy it back at the price you sold it to us for. That part's been taken out. There's some language in there that says if we get down the road, and obviously if you have investors and those sorts of folks that have interest in this, right, and they have money invested, that they kind of are going to get, we're giving up our right of first refusal to them, but we kind of get to help select who they are and what that project is, but it can't be unreasonably denied. And my concern is that, in fact, our city managers expressed this, that if this building continues to sit, it may have create some issues with it deteriorating and not being viable later on. And so with 3 years, and it could drag on, and I'm not saying I don't trust you, I'm just saying on paper today, 3 years, it's there, and then later your investors are saying, okay, well, we want to crack at it, but we don't think it's viable to save that building. I'm just concerned that there's not enough guarantee in this buy-sell agreement that no matter what, this building's going to be saved, and if it's not, you know what, we'll give it back to you. We'll guarantee you that. Something along those lines.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate when you deal with buy-sell agreements or anything like that is you're predicting worst-case scenarios, and you want to protect yourself from a worst-case scenario. And we're always saying, well, that's not going to happen. Our sponsors are, high net worth individuals who will be guaranteeing loans on the project and the things like that. And we have very strong partners as well. So, I want to provide a great deal of comfort that we're not a fly-by-night group. We have, considerable assets to complete a project successful. The reason we put the 3 years in there, and frankly, as we want to finish it a lot sooner than that, is that we're in a very volatile time for construction. So it's just really hard to predict things. And also, we're not entirely in charge of the entire planning process and approval process. So we have a lot of uncertainties. We just want to have a comfortable date on. Yes, we expect to finish it a lot earlier than that. When we close in the property, our best case scenario is that we come through and start doing environmental remediation right away. That would be the best situation. Then we go ahead and begin our plan. But we can't guarantee that because we have to get approvals. We have to, jump through hoops here and there for everything. Buildings are complex things with a lot of regulations that affect them, and we just want to make sure that we just don't want to put something in the agreement that we might be at risk of we might be in risk of default without any negligence. And so that's what we want to do. So if there's a better way to do that, we'd be open to it. We're trying to think ahead and protect us from that eventuality. I have no objection, to saying that we have to preserve the building. And if there's a way I don't know how this goes, but in 30 days that you can, put the language in there that says you have to preserve the building. I want to be careful what preserve means, because it could mean every little detail in there, and there's obviously going to be change associated with handicapped accessibility and elevator, and in the general sense of preserving the building, like you preserved this building, then we'd be comfortable with that, and would certainly agree to that. That's our intention. It's just often difficult to put your intentions in a legal document. You raised a question about the right of first refusal, and the only concern, and that's one of those conventionalities that we don't think will happen. We always have a long-term perspective. We never have an exit strategy on a property. We always just want to own it. We have a family that's been in business for 150 years, and the latest iteration of it's been in business for 100 years. They are a legacy they have a legacy perspective on business investments. So we never go into something and say, we want this building to give us an economic return in 15 or 20 years, and then we don't care. Let's flip it. We never do that. I have never, ever calculated that for any of our projects. It just doesn't interest us. The principals are interested in long-term hold, creating another 100-year life. I don't think it's quite 100 years old, but creating 100 years of additional quality life for this building. And frankly, it's 100 years out. It's probably going to change within that time, for the long term, as much as we can possibly, as humans, envision, we imagine it going the direction we're pursuing it. But if the right of first refusal was there, and the language we changed to that was really because we're going to have a lender involved. And we're concerned about the lender, and I've gone through this in other projects, being subject to, and the right of first refusal isn't that much risk for us. It's the right of repurchase at the original price. Say we've invested another $1 million in it, and we've got to pay them off. And so we can't, the lender won't accept that situation where they can only get $1 million when they put in $2 million, right? That's the eventuality we're trying to avoid. And they're not thinking it's going to happen either. Just their credit people will say, hey, let's look at this. There's a risk there. You need to mitigate that. We need you all to take that away. You need to make it disappear. And we end up with those circumstances all the time. If there's another way to frame it that's more comfortable to the city, we'd certainly look at that. But we're open to that. We just try to do the best we could, presenting a document with some modifications that would preserve your rights, your goal of getting this property into productive use, preserving the building, something that adds community vitality. That's our goal as well. So we share that. We just need to, this is for us, is not like we don't trust you. We don't think you're going to undercut us at all. Ours is, we have to satisfy this technical possibility so that our lenders will be comfortable with the project and financing it.
Right. But what we also talked about with city staff is a right of first refusal. The way that would actually be implemented is if we purchased it for $1 million and we put say $1 million into it at that point, right? So we were into it for $2 million, but the only offer that we had to buy it back was say $1.5 million. That's what the right of first refusal would be triggering on. You'd have the opportunity to match that offer. If that offer was less, or if that offer was more, that's where that comes into play. So it could still be back at the $1 million, but from Nathan's point, I mean, we wouldn't be able to get lending on that, right, the additional restriction in place.
Yeah, we wouldn't mind, I don't think, I'm going to speak out of turn, for two of us, we wouldn't mind a restriction on the property that applied to successors, preservation.
That's, I think, The whole piece, we don't want it to sit forever, and we want to preserve at least that facade. You know, I think that's and that, if there's some language in there that speaks to that, you know, that's my big piece right now is, and you know, last question I'll ask you, so I trust that you our staff, and you can work on that piece, it's to this gentleman's question right here, related to phasing. I think the community probably would be a little upset with you and us for approving it if they started to see, even if it was allowed by zoning, some condos being built there, but the building was just sitting, and something wasn't moving on that. And so, any comments on that?
We don't have any objection to a sequencing restriction.
Okay.
I don't think that's a problem at all. But this is our intention. We haven't been, all we've done for the condos is like, well, this is where you could put 5, and it's like, you know, pencils on a napkin. We haven't done much more measuring than that. It's really preserving the viability of the whole property, but it isn't something we've thought much about.
Well, thank you both for answering my questions, for being here. I really appreciate your presentation and hearing from you and talking with you face to face. I really appreciate it.
And if there's an opportunity for us to come back, and if it makes sense in the city rules and everything, we'd be happy to come back and sit down with you, chap, about how we can work these things out if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Question on the salvage of the engine. Just kind of curious. I mean, I went to the open house last summer. Can you briefly explain how you can salvage those diesel engines?
Well, let me tell you what I'm thinking about. In terms of the industrial quality and character of the building, we want to preserve at least one turbine where it is. There is salvage that's going to, I mean, the rest of them fill up the space, so they have to go. And I don't think we've answered the question or fully explored the demolition and salvage of those. But I guarantee you there's some salvageable material there. I mean, steel is valuable, so we'd expect that. It might cover a portion of the cost of removal. But just to the point, though, one of the things that we will look at is a way to reuse a lot of the equipment, the tools that are remaining in the building in creative ways, decor and artistic ways, sculpture that would celebrate the history of the use of the building as a power generator for the community. So that's another thing that we can add. I hope that will materialize. And so, we've been reached out to by artists who would like to do things like that, and we think that's a creative way of using things that no longer have their original use, but are still, fascinating and meaningful.
I just want to say thank you again for the presentation, and I'm very sorry that we couldn't have enough quorum here to commence with the rest of it here. So, but I've been through it before with you guys. I've been on here with the first time you came through, my other council that was here. But I like what Ryan was saying about some kind of changes, sequences and stuff on that order like that. All the questions that were asked is very good. And Pat, we had an issue at one time, with another developer in town, how they went bankrupt on us, and we had some guarantees written in, which helped us through that time period. So take that in consideration of what passed. We don't want to lose what we know from the past and work forward with it. So, but I really like the preservation, just like Ryan says, the preservation of the exterior of the building is what the people really want. They want to maintain that structure and the look and everything there. If they wanted to have condos and they wanted to spend and have it $1.9 million and tear the building down and put condos in it, that's not what they wanted. They basically told us that we want to preserve that building. So that's why we picked on you guys to start out with, because you were preservation of it. And also the one you did down in Florida. I looked at that and went through and I said, and that was absolutely fantastic on how you preserved the building, kept some of the equipment in there and used them for the backdrop for the bar and stuff on that order. So I really like it a lot. So I want to say thank you again, and I'm sorry that we couldn't move forward until we get a quorum here enough to handle it.
That's okay. The weather's been nice.
Don't stay too long.
I'm not planning. I'm from Northern Illinois, so we know.
You'll do fine.
Just for clarification, that building in Vero Beach was for inspiration. We didn't build that one. However, go to some of the buildings that we have done.
Oh, I
and you'll
thought
be
that was it,
impressed.
because the presentation you gave to us was on the assumption that you guys did that.
No, it's for inspiration because it's a similar property that has,
Oh, okay.
same use. It's been repurposed for a restaurant and event space with the use of the turbines. It really is kind of the genesis of the idea of what would be done here. So it's really important, but we're not the only developer who can do good stuff.
Yeah, if you wanted a list of all the historic buildings, either I've personally worked on the East Coast and in Boston, Cambridge, if you wanted to look at a list of historic buildings they've touched and worked on, we would be very happy to present that to you, to kind of check that box from, we know what these buildings take, we know how they're made up, we know how to work with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I got a couple things.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I first want to thank Ryan, actually, because he hit almost every point I had. But I do have one point that, well, I will tell you, I have reservations about 5 condos. Can you give me some idea, if you know, because as Sherman comes down, it is really almost a cliff. It's not a place where you could, so you would build them into the side of that hill? Is that the theory? And they wouldn't really necessarily get a great view because they'd be blocked by the diesel plant itself.
If you looked at the topography there, which I know you're aware of.
I go by it about 3
Yep.
times a week going, what are they gonna do here?
So if you look at the top of the current retaining wall that's
Yes.
on the back side
Yep.
of the parking lot,
Mhm.
imagine that being the grade of the bottom level.
Okay,
Okay, so we wouldn't go any further down, it wouldn't be down to the parking lot or anything like that. That retaining wall would stay in place, the lower level grade would be down pretty much at the height of that retaining wall, kind of where that pad currently sits, or the pad used to sit, right? And then you'd have a grade above that, so you're parking, you drive in off Sherman, very similar to the condos next to it where you pull right in, and then your
Okay.
garage, you
How
would
many
have a
feet-
basement.
How many feet above Harbor would I be when I came in off Sherman? Like in the middle? So,
Be at the height of Sherman, where
yes,
you drive
but
in.
Sherman goes up like this, so would I be?
Yeah, but
It would probably step.
Stair step?
Correct.
Okay.
Follow the terrain.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been engineered or anything. We haven't
Okay.
gotten that far.
All right, so there's not really engineering, and they'd be.
But the view
they'd be
there.
individual condominiums is what you'd be thinking? Or one building that has 5 condos in it?
Well, they'd be individual, but they would be connected.
Okay.
You wouldn't walk in to get to 5 different doors.
Okay,
They'd each have their own, which would be a townhome.
okay, all right.
Or an attached building, an attached townhouse could be.
All right. And then my other question was about, I loved the idea of some kind of preservation restriction, and I'm really happy to hear you would be open to that, because I think that would, it would soothe a lot of my fears, frankly. I wanted to ask you about what you think about the seasonality of our community, because we are a very seasonal community. And one of the things that I'm hearing you saying is you will bring business here off-season, which would be a good thing for our community, but I will tell you, is not an easy thing. So who will come? I mean, what kinds of uses do you see of that outside of the May to September window?
Well, from an event venue standpoint, weddings.
Okay. You see them, I know there are some weddings at Christmas, but I would say February, March, and April, and January are probably dead. They're not really wedding months. So-
I would encourage you, well, because there's no current open slots, they're taking any slot they can get. I would encourage you to drive or go talk to an event operator in the West Michigan area. They are lined up.
Okay.
Lined up.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, we're in northern Illinois, and we have a Starved Rock State Park. It's a beautiful state park, has this great lodge. That place is busy in the winter for weddings.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's
But-
busier in the summer.
But Starved Rock kind of has a cross-country skiing vibe out there, don't they?
Can't cross-country ski.
No?
No, I'm so disappointed. I came from New Orleans 6 years ago to northern Illinois, expecting to put on skis. And
Mm-hmm. No? Not enough
it's never
snow?
consistent enough to
Interesting.
develop anything.
Okay. Seasonality. The sequencing, I also think, is going to be important to the community, which it sounds like you're open to. Okay, this is the only thing I wanted to say, which is, don't get discouraged. Because honestly, I did look through the portfolios that you both provided with the original proposal. I wasn't on council then, but I was interested in what was going to happen to it personally, because I was hoping there'd be an opportunity to preserve it in a creative way. And what you provided, to me, offered that opportunity in a way that no one else did at the time. So I don't want you to get discouraged. I appreciate your patience. It's not an easy thing for us to sort out, but I think we're getting there, and I very much appreciate your coming in to do this.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, could I just add a couple of comments? Greg Holcomb, I've been the consultant who started with the BLP and have worked with Pat since March. I just have a couple of comments. I think what you just said is really important. The creative transformation and revitalization of this building is really what these guys offer. I've been analyzing and working on this project for almost 2 years. I think the program that they put together, it's not all nailed down, but it really gives us a great opportunity to bring new vitality and life to the space, to the property, and to the surrounding neighborhood. I think it's a wonderful going-in proposal that can be fleshed out more fully. I also think on the restart, I'll call this the restart, BLP had no restrictions. The city very strongly said, first order of business, Mike, you've said it well, save the building. Came through in the survey, came through in everybody's comments. Save the building, we'd like a minimum of $1 million, and we want a mix of uses that makes sense, that the Planning Commission can buy into, that the community supports. The most important thing you said is save the building. That's an expression of value. Expression of value in the property, in the architectural integrity, in the usefulness of 90 years of producing energy for the community, producing surpluses that help the community in its general operation. And if that was all, I think we'd be well served. To save the building by itself is a really valuable goal. But inherent in saving the building is, this is a public building that has had essentially no public access. So the other part of saving the building is getting people to be able to go inside. And I think that to me is one of the magical opportunities. I was here when the Piano Factory opened. I was working in Holland, and it was like, you gotta see this place. It's awesome. The residential, the commercial, the restaurant. That was an exciting moment, not just for Grand Haven, but for all of West Michigan. You got to get to Grand Haven to see the Piano Factory. It's awesome. And other buildings have been done, but that was a real kind of signature moment. I think that's the chance here too. Kyle describes it well. It's a unique destination. I think it has that potential for business conferences as well as weddings and other things. But I think the public access to either the event venue, the restaurant potentially, the offices, gives a unique kind of appeal to your desire to save the building. I think it's a really commendable thing. I wholeheartedly support the resolution. I've worked with Pat over the last year on this and feel that we've come to a good spot. The buy-sell isn't absolutely perfect. Some of the comments will make it better, and we'll work on that, I'm sure. But I 100% support this direction and recommend that we try to move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're moving on, and it looks like we've got an update on Harbor Island Environmental by Derek Gatos, Public Works Director.
Yes, good evening, Your Honor. Derek Gates, Public Works
Okay,
Director.
be honest, were you out there eating cake?
I was not. I have not had a piece of cake yet.
All right, just checking.
However, we do have a special guest. If you don't mind me giving the podium before I start my presentation, like
That'd be
20 seconds.
Yep.
20 seconds.
in Italian, my friend, because I hear my friends at my house. And I said, I better come here. Tanti auguri a te, tanti auguri a te, tanti auguri a patri. Tanti auguri a te.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you very much. Woo! Bravissimo.
Well, sorry about that, Your Honor. He was on the hallway, said he had a bedtime he had to hit, and wasn't here for the first singing, so.
Hey, just woke Eric up on the radio.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, that was fantastic. So yes, just a quick presentation and update. We promised you a couple, well, it's been 3 weeks now since you met. And we've got some things to consider tonight. So our engineers, HDR, are on a Zoom call right now with us, and Lara from HDR. I was going to slaughter her last name, so I won't even try. But anyways, she's actually at a conference in Omaha, so she had to attend by Zoom. And so she's going to take us through this presentation real quick. Hopefully it'll give you an idea of the scope and the breadth as we consider some resolutions tonight. Lara, are you there?
I think I might have to turn up my volume here, actually.
Almost.
Yeah, you've got my, did you take my screen over or something?
There's a little dead silence for the radio.
There we go, I got it. Now she's on.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Laura, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you for having us. Today we're in front of you are packages that we submitted for the next set of work. And I'm just going to kind of give an update of what we've done so far and what we have coming up for the rest of the year. So you can go to the next slide and the next one. Okay. So if you remember from our first task order, we had a set of activities that we had put aside for kind of getting up to speed. And so what we submitted to the city so far is a communication plan of how, who's all involved in the project and how we're communicating with the city. The second one is an obligation register, and that's essentially all the requirements that is needed under the federal and state CCR rule for the reports that we have to submit and when and who's responsible for it. Then we submitted a data gap memo, all the information that, you know, after looking at all the information that we have from Golder and the BLP, what other information that we feel that it's a gap. And the two big documents that we spent kind of this first quarter preparing is the 2022 CCR work plan and non-CCR work plan. These work plans essentially, it's a roadmap to investigating the CCR and compliance to the federal rule and Part 115 with EGLE. Both of these documents, the CCR and the non-CCR, will be submitted to EGLE, and you know, either they agree with the work plan or they may recommend maybe more sampling, more wells, but this is kind of what we had proposed based on the information that we have. On the community engagement or our strategic communication side, we've done a community analysis report, and we've done a public involvement engagement plan. We also created the website that we will be sharing with the public our milestones and our reports and communication with the agencies. We've also established a community action group, and that group is made of citizens of Grand Haven, and they will be our sounding board whenever we come with maybe redevelopment or any information. It's essentially our vehicle to the public. And we had a great meeting with Eagle where we went over kind of the plans for the 2022 and essentially set the stage for our work. Next slide.
Yeah, Laura, if you don't mind me jumping in here real quick. Some of these documents as drafts have been already sent on to Eagle, so we can get their opinion on it. The last few that they'll need are in the final version of a draft. So hopefully they'll put their mark on that. We can, as soon as they will accept them, we'll undraft those, make those the permanent plans, and submit those finally to Eagle. Of course, all those documents will be available on the website. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, so what we submitted in front of you is our upcoming task, or task that we need to finish out the year. And I just want to, let everybody know this is a slow process. It's not something that we do this and we're done, and we kind of have the results. This is a one report leads to the other that kind of fill out the puzzle. So we've divided it into separate task and task order. The first one, which is task order 2, which deals with the coal pile removal. So BLP has submitted a coal pile removal plan to Eagle, and that plan was approved. So the next step would be the implementation of that plan, which requires removal of the coal ash, doing field verification to make sure that the coal is removed, and then documenting that in a report to the agency, to Eagle. Task 6, which is the bulk of the work, which is the CCR groundwater compliance. Essentially, we have 23 wells, and we'll be sampling, or 24 monitoring wells. We'll be sampling every 5 weeks. And these are the constituents that are for the state and federal compliance. And after we do the sampling every 5 weeks, there's a whole host of data validation, data management, and reporting that goes with it. There are milestone reports that would need to be submitted to Eagle every quarter, at the end of each quarter, and then to the federal CCR, which is January of 2023. Another reporting that needs to be done is the hydrogeological monitoring plan, and it's basically summarizing to Eagle everything that is related to the hydrology of the site, the soils, the groundwater, and this monitoring plan becomes part of the site that the Eagle would have to approve. We have some staff gauges that we need to prepare, and task 9 is it's the North Channel investigation, and what that is advancing soil borings to see what the thickness of the ash in that North Channel. And task 10 is the PFAS. It's all related to the PFAS, which includes installing groundwater monitoring wells and collecting quarterly groundwater sampling, doing the analysis of the sampling, and coming up with basically a PFAS investigation report. That way we can find out the source of the PFAS. The last set of tasks are related to our public involvement, which is the doing the communication coordination of the community advisory group, and uploading all the information to the website, and doing public meeting, communicating all of our technical side of what we do to the public. I think that's the last slide.
Yeah. So tonight there's 3 resolutions on the agenda dealing with those task orders, and for you to consider. We've reviewed all those documents, and I have, along with Laura and with Pat and us and our attorney, some of those. So we feel that they're ready for your action. Pat might want to speak on the funding at the actual resolution time, what that's going to be. But those are the costs moving forward for our next set. This will take us through this year, with the exception of the actual coal pile removal. The BLP was in the process of accepting bids for those, and the actual construction of that. That's basically scraping all the leftover coal that was on the ground over there, and taking that off to certified landfills. There's some dewatering that has to go on with that as well, and so there's an actual construction project that might come or should come to you in the next few months. We're working out those details as well.
Yeah, questions, Ryan?
Yeah, well, thank you, Derek and Laura. You guys have done a lot of work to get up to speed in a relatively short period of time, and not just gotten up to speed, but done a lot of work to lay out the path forward. One thing I do want to ask about is we're looking at our path forward here. Eagle has sent our Board of Light and Power an enforcement notice alleging 4 different violations related to the units 3A and 3B. And Eagle considers those violations to be significant violations. Is this plan forward? I know there's some other negotiations, I believe, that Eagle's asked to enter into it. Is this plan going to help us bring the BLP into legal compliance with that section of the impoundments and us as a whole? Is that plan going to set us on that path?
Yeah, I don't know how much I want to talk about the draft consent order, but what was in there, Laura and HDR has reviewed that along with our attorney, and then the gist of that is yes. Okay. 95% of what we're proposing tonight, or what you've seen tonight, is being should take care of everything that's in that order. There was one thing that I think we're going to still check on. I think, Laura, we didn't have an answer quite yet, but yes.
So
hopefully we'll have the solutions before that actually comes out.
Okay. All right. I think that answers that.
Mike?
No, I just want to say thank you for working so hard on it and getting a path going for us. It's going to be a long process. So I got to say thank you to both of you guys and everybody that's been working on it.
I'd like to add, in a short time, you put a framework around this in a way that I think I can get a picture of, which is very helpful in a variety of ways, including understanding, but also explaining it to people that we're going to need to explain it to as we go forward. I did have, and I know that the answer to this may be we don't know yet, but I know that there's been groundwater sampling going on in the last year or so by BLP, and now we are using their wells and putting in some additional wells. Is that accurate? And the groundwater sampling is going to attack or address 2 issues, one being coal ash, I'll call it, and the other PFAS largely. But so the question I would have, and this may be something you can't answer, but maybe a ballpark would be, how long do we assess before we have an idea of how to address the issues? Any idea there?
Well, our plan is to have that, Laura, to have that document, by the end of the year or in January of next year.
So maybe within a year from now, we will have a plan. We might not have funding yet, but we'll have a plan to propose that would address the environmental issues out there in the safest way we can manage.
Correct. Yeah, there's going to be some options we're going to have that are going to have cost numbers associated with at what level do we do the minimum level, and then that might restrict our use of the island in the future. So we'll have to make some decisions like that, but at least we'll have those options. Hopefully, again, our anticipation, all this sampling will be done in 2022. by the end of the year, our last sampling, and then submittal of that to Eagle for their determination what's minimum, and then we can obviously go above that, and we have some options for that. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura.
No, that's correct. So we'll have alternatives that we can look at for remediation. I mean, we're dealing with PFAS and CCR, and so we would have to find one that would, kind of work for both. But Molly's on the line. I don't know if Molly would want to talk about kind of where, at what point we start talking about assessment of corrective measures and have that idea.
Okay.
Well, we will start putting together an assessment of corrective measures in the middle of this year, just for the timing of how the CCR program compliance will have to develop. So we'll start a bit of alternatives for the and starting to form what alternatives are on the table for the CCR side of this by middle of this year. However, we've got to then set that kind of to the side and continue with the PFAS investigation. And then as we start to see the results coming in on the PFAS investigation and forming that, we're going to lay it up against, side by side against the CCR alternatives and the non-CCR alternatives. And we're going to see how we can line those up and how we can match those up to meet both of those objectives, if that makes sense. So they're going to come together in 2022 here, and by the end of the year, as both Derek and Laura said, we should have some alternatives that would then, and costs associated with alternatives that we can talk about.
That sounds actually very positive to me, and I would like to thank you for all the work you've put in to get up to speed in this, and tell you, from my perspective at least, the transition's been relatively seamless, and I commend you. Thank you, Derek, as well, because I know this has been taking a ton of your time. So.
Yes, no, but it's all good work. It's work that needs to be done, and our community will be beneficial. That extra effort by everybody, and I thank Laura and HDR because they've been dragging me around through this process. It's very complicated, and one of the things I want to say is, our website and the communication plan is to make it non-complicated and very easily understandable of a complicated situation. So,
okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think we're good. Okay, Derek, it looks like Matt is up next. Is he here? Yes, hello, Matt. Got a street maintenance report by Matt Wade, our streets and utilities manager.
Yeah, good evening, Council. Mayor, Matt Wade, Streets and Utilities Manager, and I'm here to give you a little report on street maintenance and how we look at things moving forward and plan for the future and what we've done the past few years. If I'm not sure how many of you have heard of PACER rating system, but it's a system that's been developed that it stands for Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating Asphalt Roads, and it's a system that's been developed so that we rate our roads the same as every other community in the state. You have different levels from 10, which is an excellent condition. If you think about a road that we just reconstructed, Fulton Avenue, for example, that would be a 10, but almost becomes a 9 after a year. Here in Michigan, we have a lot of freeze thaws that happen, and it's hard to keep our roads in excellent condition. And then you go all the way down to a 1, which would be a road that needs to be reconstructed. And that can fall in between that 3 to 1 range. So the resurfacing that we talk about and the resurfacing that needs to get done usually falls in the 6 to 3 range for PACER ratings. And these two maps that you see at the bottom are highlighting different areas of PACER rated roads. So that first one you can see, those are 3 and under. Now I will say that the last time we had our roads PACER rated was in 2017. So we have made a lot of improvements to these maps, but it's still good.
Some of them might have got better, but some of them might have gotten worse, right?
Exactly. And it's just a good example to show you here. So that's the one on the right there is a 6 and under. So technically those are roads that we want to resurface. Now, as you guys know, we can't reconstruct every road you see up there. We don't have the funding to do that. We also can't resurface every one. So we have to go through a process of which ones should be, which ones need to wait. Is there water main replacement, sewer, storm, all that everything that's happening under the road, and can we resurface it at the same time? Or do we just resurface to get us by till we reconstruct? So like I said, a little bit of the planning and tracking. We've started to use GIS for a lot of different things, and one of those things is tracking the roads that we resurface. So up there in the right corner, that's kind of showing you the different colors there, yellow. In 2016, those were the sections that were resurfaced. And by putting it on a map, it just gives us a better idea. You know, sometimes that list of streets, that long list, is hard to really look at and see where have we connected the dots or what should we be doing next. But this, along with PACER ratings and future reconstruction projects, water main, sewer main, and things like that, we can kind of put together a better plan. If you notice, in 2017 and 18, we had...
Combined, I was trying
Yeah,
to
that was
figure
a
out why that was such a big number.
That was a combined year. We used to pave in the fall, which is kind of the end of the paving season, and we didn't think we were really getting the best rates, so we switched that to the spring paving. We wanted to get on top of that right away, so we then paved in the spring, and we've been paving in the spring ever since. And the green in 2020 was a little less because we did some reconstruction paving. We used that money out on Harbor Island, on Coho Drive and Harbor Island Drive. So another part of our street maintenance is crack sealing. You'll see the overband crack fill in parking lots right out here, in a lot of our streets. Now, we do cover a lot more ground with crack fill. It's a necessary expense. If you go look at a road that we resurfaced last year, such as Ferry, it already has plenty of cracking coming through. And that's just...
It's from freezing, Matt?
Yeah, and if you don't reconstruct the road, all those cracks that are underneath that resurface is generally, it's a Band-Aid, but it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive as a full reconstruction. Yeah. So it's a Band-Aid, and then this is another step in the process. Usually the year following, we'll come back and crack seal all those cracks. And then you kind of just keep going from there. We try to do extra, not just the roads that were resurfaced last year, but we'll branch out and look at the ones that were resurfaced 2-3 years ago as well. There's a wide range of different costs there. A lot of those years, you know, we generally keep our footage the same, give or take a little bit, but it just is always surprising to me at the differences in costs year to year. So that year where we did $44,000 worth of crack seal might not have been that much different in footage from 2021. It was just the contractor that bid on it and the weight or the amount of crack seal that they used. And like I said, planning for the future, you know, I kind of mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of different things that go into how and when and where we decide that we resurface. Yes, we'd like to resurface every street out there, but sometimes there's a water main or sewer main that needs to be replaced underneath it, and there's no sense in resurfacing it this year because 3 years from now we might be reconstructing the road. But that's, you know, those are the things that are hard to balance and weigh. So we're working on a 5-year resurfacing plan right now. We also have all of our lead service line replacements that are coming up. That'll play a big role in that because we'll be tearing up a lot of sections of streets in certain areas, and we'll want to go back and resurface that the following year. And then new PACER ratings this year. So we're looking forward to that. And these are
Is that done by contractor?
Do
you do it ourselves?
No, that's provided by the state.
Oh, the state does?
Yep, and they've, COVID, you know, a lot of different reasons, they've had a hard time getting out to all the different communities and doing those PACER ratings. But these are just a few pictures, a few examples of what I was just talking about. That top one that's looking pretty rough there, you can actually see from City Hall. It's 6th Street, just across Washington. And then the front and center one is Fulton from last year. The one to the left with the crack is Ferry. And then the one on the right is Verhooks, which had been resurfaced 2 years ago, I think it was, and then crack sealed last year. So that's a quick update. I don't know if you guys have any specific questions regarding, you know, how we plan and how we move forward with resurfacing and road maintenance.
I think I'm good, gentlemen. I think we're good. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.
Thank you, Matt. I think about you guys every time I see all the potholes, but you guys are working on them constantly, and I wish we had more money for it. Denny used to always be honest about our road resurfacing, but we'll keep picking away at it with the resources we have.
Really cracking away at it.
Yeah.
All right. Consent agenda, would the clerk please read? Do we need we got a motion first, or do we read it first?
Certainly do it either way. I'm happy to read it first if that's helpful.
Let's read it first.
So there's a number of items on your consent agenda today. The first is to approve the city council meeting minutes of the special meeting and closed session held on March 14th, 2022, and the special and regular meetings held on March 21st, 2022. I would add that there are 2 corrections to this. On page 2 of the March 21st meeting minutes, Hollow is spelled incorrectly. And on page 1 of the special meeting on the 21st, PM is repeated twice. So just going to change those. Just thought everyone should know that they're different than the draft. The next item on your consent agenda is to approve the bills memo in the amount of $473,468.69. The next item is to approve a resolution to hold a special city council meeting on April 18th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. in the Mackinac Ballroom of the Community Center, 421 Columbus Avenue, Grand Haven, Michigan, 49417, for the purpose of discussing the proposed budget for 2022-2023. The next item is to accept the low bid and approve the contractor services agreement with Michigan Pavement Markings from Wyoming, Michigan, in the amount of $47,636.50 for citywide pavement markings and striping, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents. Item E is to award the 2022 street resurfacing project to Michigan Paving Materials, Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed amount of $425,283.05, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents. Item F is to accept the bid and approve the contractor services agreement with Division 7 Building Contractors Incorporated, Kalamazoo, Michigan, in the amount of $45,623.10 to provide roof coating for hangars D and F at the City of Grand Haven Memorial Airport, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents. Item G is to accept the bid and approve the contractor services agreement with Permagreen Inc., Holland, Michigan, in the amount of $39,487 for year 2022, with a 3% increase for year 2023 and 2024, to provide fertilization and weed control for the City of Grand Haven through the end of the calendar year 2024, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents. Item H is to accept the transfer of ownership of 815 Taylor Avenue, Seaway Party Store of SSD and SDM licensed business with Sunday sales permit, PM, for SDD licenses, spirits, Sunday sales permit, AM, beer and wine tasting permit, and Sunday sales permit, PM, for SDM license, mixed spirit drink, from Dillon and Dillon, Inc., to applicant Vinayak Kumar Aurora, CO VJSK Enterprise, LLC, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents. The request is for approval of the sale and transfer of a liquor license from the current owner to the new owner of the business. Item I is to adopt a certified resolution approving MDOT Aero Contract 2022-0475 in the amount of $115,300
$930 for the land acquisition costs of parcels E62 at 15870 O'Brien Court and parcel E63 at 14,444 Angelus Court, Grand Haven, Michigan, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents. Item J is to approve a special event request to hold an airport open house fly-in on Saturday, June 4th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and waive $325 in fees. Item K is to approve a special event request to hold trunk or treat at the Grand Haven Municipal Airport on Saturday, October 29th, 2022 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Item L is to approve a special event request to hold Flea on 7th to utilize parking lots number 12 and number 13 on Sunday, July 31st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the last item on your consent agenda, item M, is to approve a special event request to hold the Music on the Grand event at Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium on Wednesdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. beginning June 8th through August 31st, except during Coast Guard, and to waive the park rental fee of $6,000 and reduce the electric use fee to $25 weekly.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
Absolutely. I'd be glad to make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins. Any further discussion? Any discussion? Just like to say, I'm very excited that Music on the Grand continues, and I wish them well every Wednesday, and I hope they keep dancing. Can we, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to new business.
Yep, and the first item under new business is item A, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve retention agreement with Public Safety Chief Jeff Hawk and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents.
Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins. Any discussion?
No, I'm glad to see Jeff can be with us for a couple more years at least.
more
So,
years?
yeah, that's good to see.
Good for us? Ryan? Yep. Would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item under new business is consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve a budget amendment for major streets and local streets funds to adjust line items transferring a total of $11,000 from asphalt overlay to pavement markings to accommodate bid outcomes.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
In support.
Okay, motion by Cummins, second by Fritz. Discussion?
We're dancing.
Yeah. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
The next item under new business is item C, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve the contract modification task order number 002 with HDR Michigan Inc. out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed cost of $86,923 for project management services related to coal removal activities pending identification and appropriation of sufficient funding. The work is required by the state of Michigan and outlined in the approved updated coal removal verification work plan dated July 9, 2021, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins. Discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
The next item on your agenda, item D, is consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve the contract modification, task order number 003 with HCR Michigan Inc. out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed cost of $644,741 for environmental services related to the former J.B. Sims generating station and coal combustible residual requirements pending identification and appropriation of sufficient funding, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary document.
Can you get a motion?
So moved.
In support.
Motion by Cummins, second by Fritz. Discussion?
This one I think would be, a good opportunity maybe for our city manager to kind of touch on some of the funding pieces for these. I appreciate that language being in or you're proposing that language to be in the resolutions, but obviously these are large bills and some of it's in BLP budgets, but it's not, we're unclear on some things at this point as it relates to some of the funding.
Precisely, we're very unclear, and the desire and design to continue the momentum going and continue our consultants working is strong, but we don't have the resources identified just yet. We had hoped that sometime, as we were working with our consultants in the first quarter of this year, that we would maybe have a little more success with our coordination with our friends at the BLP, as well as some potential other sources of funding, but they haven't quite come to fruition yet. So we inserted that language pending the identification. So we're okay to move forward with HDR once we come back here and say, here's how we're going to pay for it. And you've got some clarity and precision about that because we've not presented you with a budget amendment, which we could do because we've got some ARPA funding, but we hope to ask other levels of government to perhaps use some of their ARPA funding to supplement our funding. So we want to come back with something, but this gives us something real concrete to bring to those other levels of government. And the mayor and other members of council have been very helpful communicating with some of our elected representatives in Washington, Lansing, and at Fillmore. And we're going to continue to do that, as well as talking to the BLP and hopefully come up with a solid device. But we need these solid numbers in place. This is what we're ready to move forward with. We've got contracts ready to sign and ready to move forward on, but we've got to get those final T's crossed. Worst case scenario, we come back and say we really need to dip into our ARPA funds or fund balance to get these specific items done. And we'll probably be doing that maybe at the April 25th meeting, maybe at the May 2nd meeting. It'll be fairly recurring. We need to keep some things moving. Other things we might be able to pull out and say, well, this we can wait on and be a little more patient on. But I'm being optimistic, and also meanwhile, I think we've got some ideals about times we might get together with our friends at BLP to, kind of split some of this up and get some commitment there, so we can definitely keep the ball rolling, Derek.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think BLP has budgeted for some of this, and I think we're due for a conversation with them, and I may be tapping you to go with me to have it, so. I think it's good to have a plan and to start moving out on the plan, but I think everybody's pretty sensitive to the idea that without funding to back the plan up, we're going to get stalled pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And I think that's worth putting out to the public and letting people know.
I'll agree, and I'll thank you and Mr. Fritz for your work in Lansing recently, and you, Pat, and Derek as well. There's been a lot of conversations happening with our state and federal lawmakers or their staff regularly on a constant basis. I'm seeing things. Obviously, you guys have done a good job of talking with our media partners as well to keep them informed on what's going on in Harbor Island. I think Wood TV did a piece. The Tribune just did another piece that you guys kind of talked about what Renew Harbor Island really means, and so thank you for your work to keep folks updated, keep the attention on this because it's important for our entire region. But thank you for the work of putting numbers together and seeing it on paper too. That's extremely important. It's not just conceptual. There's real dollars here, real issues that we have to solve. So thank you for your work.
I think we got, the city manager and I got an interesting signal this week that I would call a positive reflection on the work Derek and all of the people involved in this are doing. I got an outreach from a member of Congressman Meyer, Peter Meyer's staff, and his district is shifting, and he's running for re-election this year for a district that now will include Grand Haven, and the member of his staff sent me a note and said, hey, I'm interested in coming out and meeting with you and the city manager and talking about your issues. And I sent him a note back and I said, well, I'd like to talk to you about Harbor Island. And I just gave him a brief explanation of what it was. And what was interesting was he came back and said, I've heard about it already, and I'm very interested in learning more. So it doesn't mean we've got traction, but at least means somebody's talking about it. And that was, to me, a very positive sign, so, for what it's worth. Okay, I've lost track. Is there?
Ready to vote.
We're ready to vote?
Yep.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
The next item on your agenda, item E under new business, is consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve the contract modification, task order number 004 with HDR Michigan Inc. out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed costs of $46,016 for community and stakeholder activities through 2022 related to the former J.B. Sims generating station and coal combustible residual requirements pending identification and appropriation of sufficient funding, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents.
Get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins. Discussion?
I'll just end this one quickly. I appreciate you scaling this back from the proposal that HCR did have. I think there's a lot of good plans in there, but we have to look at the realities of what funds we do have. So I appreciate staff saying, hey, we're still going to work on making all of this available on a website, but we're going to work on it maybe at our staff level here. I think you know exactly what we're looking for in that regard, and what we're expecting to be posted as far as formal correspondence to Eagle back and forth and reports. But just quickly, I appreciate the updates, one, in this forum, but that they're understandable, they're succinct. It was, I appreciate it. So, so thank you, and I look forward to that continuing in an easily digestible format and with a new kind of advisory group that can kind of help bounce ideas off community members too.
Absolutely. The number was a little bit, it was more out of this world, put it that way. I'm glad they're doing a lot more of it in-house and that, and doing it the way we should be doing it. You get more personal, we can at least get it to more where our constituents can understand it too. We can break it down a little easier. We can, sometimes you get outside people, they want to break it, and they put in a lot of verbiage into it so that people don't understand. So I'm glad we can use our resources that we have and get it out there to them and save ourselves some money on it. So thank you guys for all your hard work on doing that too. I really appreciate it a lot.
There is one update that I talked to Pat about after submitting this council packet. Was the $46,000 is for them not necessarily provide content. So one thing that isn't just about us posting the content or on the website, we're going to have to do a lot of the content making ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they did provide another number. It was in the 130s, low 130s, to do the content making, and then we would just do the publishing of that kind of stuff. So they'd offer that up as well. I didn't want to mix the waters as much in my memo, and it kind of came late at the last minute. But there's some options, and if we get some funding, me and Pat, we've talked about this. We should, implement their full proposal if we can get some from state and federal funding for it.
I know one of the reasons we picked this contract, or one of several, but one that was important to a lot of people, was their willingness and ability to do the outreach so that people could understand what was going on. And you get what you pay for, so how much outreach we can afford is gonna be a question, but we'll do the best we can.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Derek. All right, call the roll.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Great. There's one last item on your new business, item F, which is consideration by City Council of a resolution directing staff to provide a recommendation on the creation and structure of a Sustainability and Energy Commission, a citizen commission under the city charter and responsible to the City Council.
This is an item that Councilmember.
Get a motion.
Well, if I just may preface my comment, and I'll make a motion, Your
Okay,
Honor.
that sounds fine.
If I may make a motion to postpone for the fact that Councilmember Lowell wished to have this item added for discussion tonight. I seconded her wish to have it added onto the agenda, so that's why it's on the agenda. But given that she's not here, I'll make a motion to postpone this to our next meeting.
Okay. Is there a second for postponing?
It doesn't matter to me, I guess. We can vote on it if you want, but
I'll second postponing it until Councilmember Lowe is here, can speak to it.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on that? You're ready to vote, Mike, is what you're saying?
yeah, it didn't matter. I guess either way.
Do you object to waiting until Councilmember
Oh, no,
Lowe is here?
I was gonna make a motion, but you just went ahead and did it, so it's all right.
All right, so we're going to make a motion to postpone until next city council meeting?
Correct.
Next city council meeting. And we've got, I actually seconded the motion, and could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
All right, that's postponed. Looks like your next, for your the meeting on the 25th. So you now move on to unfinished business. Item A under unfinished business is consideration of a final resolution to approve an amendment to the approved plan development for Nodos at the Bilmar located at 1223 South Harbor Drive, parcel number 70-03-29-312-004, to construct a conference room / bridal lounge addition and second-story deck and enclose an existing 3-season patio.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins. Discussion. Mike?
Well, let's see. I asked for a lawyer's opinion on it, and we've gotten our opinion from him on it, and I've gotten quite a few different opinions from different lawyers too, so I'm satisfied with what it is and go moving forward with it, to be honest with you, with the opinion that we got from our lawyer, so.
Brian? I know you asked for an attorney's opinion as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate our city attorney reviewing this, and we've had him comment on this quite a few different times with different concerns that have come up in the last few weeks. I am a little concerned that we're a party to a consent agreement, and it sounds like our city attorney doesn't have any. I'll speak for him, but I didn't raise any immediate red flags with concerns that's not necessarily being violated as it relates to this deck portion. But I'm a little concerned that, there was a consent agreement in place that we were a party to, and then in 2018, when the Nodal family came and wanted to do some significant improvements, which vastly improved what was there, but it sounded like there was kind of some, my understanding is some kind of mutual agreement between the association members and the Nodals and the city, and I'm hearing a lot of concerns from folks that were from Highland Park and their association, some individual members, their association letter. It's didn't really have a strong opinion either way, at least that was my reading of it. And what their, exact position is. But it does concern me that the neighbors are concerned, not that they necessarily get veto power over their neighbors. But when we look at plan development zonings, they create some flexibility, but this is considered a major change. That's why it's before us. If these were considered minor changes, the planning commission simply could have reviewed them and made a decision that they felt was appropriate. In this case, they're considered major changes to the original plan development and intent. They're before us, and then, if the major amendments are approved, then they'll go back to the planning commission for further site plan review and further detail. So, I have, really some mixed feelings about that. It sounds like there's some concerns related to this, like a crosswalk not being constructed. It's been years and that issue hasn't been raised. It should have been raised sooner. But if there's some things that are needed to be done to bring that into better compliance, then certainly those things should be done. But that's just kind of, I want to hear from you too, Mayor, on this. And if there's only 3 of us tonight, although on this issue there would have only, well, at least tonight, well, maybe only 3 of us. But
I've read all the letters. I have the most trouble with the question of a rooftop deck. That is the only real issue I think I have at this point. And I don't think, I think it is possible that the deck they want to put in is above a roof. I still don't think I have a particularly precise answer on that. But I have, at this point, it is my view that even if it is shielded from the Highland Park homes by the wall of the building, so that, and we have been told it will not be used for music or amplified sound, though it does sound like it will be used for customers. So we've got an opinion from city attorney that it does not, that it is, the proposed development change does not conflict with the consent agreement. And I think we have to rely on the legal advice we got. Now, I would have to say that what we got didn't specifically address issues I have. So, or questions I have, I guess is what I would say. So, I would be willing to write up a list of those questions and ask, we can postpone this one more time, even though that's probably not going to change the decision long term, but the deck issue is the only issue I have. To be honest, the crosswalk, to me, it wasn't done, it should have been done, we should enforce it, and that can be fixed. The other issues that have been raised, I don't believe that construction on I guess it would be the south portion, to add that second story, violates the consent agreement in any way. The only issue that I have is the rooftop deck, and we've been told by our attorney it does not violate it. I'm willing to go with the attorney, but I'm not happy that specific issue has been addressed. I've tried to look at the diagrams, and to be honest, you can't tell what's below that, what's below the deck. So it doesn't look like it all sits on a roof, but it looks like some of it may sit on a roof, if that makes sense. So I don't honestly think that even if it is a deck, it was what was contemplated in the rooftop deck provision of the consent agreement, but I think there's an argument that it was. So I don't honestly know what's the right way to go.
You know,
Postpone?
yeah, I mean, if you need more, yeah,
And ask more
if you need more, yeah, time to ask some more questions, I know, you know, Ron had written some more detailed analysis related to the deck, and I noticed today that may have not gotten to the entire council, so Pat has
I don't
printed
think I got it.
and provided that this evening to us, which may help with some of the questions, and may raise more. So I think it's.
Is that what, it was provided this evening?
Yes.
Okay,
Right,
but I
right.
didn't get a look at it, guys.
So, and you're, yeah, and I don't wanna, so, and.
I'm gonna ask to postpone.
Yep, no, I think that's appropriate, so you have time to
Because
digest.
That's news to me,
yeah.
and I would like an opportunity to read it and digest it.
Yep, oh, that's definitely understandable, and, so I'll make the motion then to postpone it to our next meeting.
Your second, Mike?
Yeah, I'll second it for you, just for only, till the next meeting, that's it. We can't keep postponing it forever.
I know that. Yep.
You have to make a decision, one way or another, we have to make a decision on this. I just don't like postponing it all the time. If we're not gonna make decisions, then we shouldn't have it here, and just let them do what they want then. It's our decision we have to make.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fritz,
Yes?
Councilmember Cummins,
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
So I'll come back to you on April 25th. The last item of unfinished business is consideration by City Council of a final resolution to amend the City of Grand Haven Code of Ordinances by restating Section 9-1 regarding penalties for violating construction codes to include plumbing in penalty language.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Okay, I had one thing, Kelly, that, did I give it to you? Okay, cool. There's a "the" missing to make it a parallel provision, and I'd like to insert the "the," but otherwise I'm good. Call the roll?
Follow up and get that.
So I'll have to check on the. I got them switched around where it was
Oh, no,
plumbing.
right.
Let me make sure.
There's still a "the." I sent you. I'll show you where it is. It is an editorial comment only, but it's, you've got basically, you've got the four codes described in one provision, and then in the next provision, you've got the same four codes in the right order, but it's not the same wording. You've missed a word.
Gotcha.
And I'll show you where it is.
Is everyone okay with approving that with the addition of the that needs to be
Adds
added?
a "the" in front of, I've got it.
Yeah, as long as it's not substantive.
It's not substantive, and it just makes it parallel. I'm sorry. I brought it to the meeting. All right, the first, where it reads penalty, section 9-1, says a violation of any provision, permit, certificate, or order issued pursuant to the Michigan Building Code, the Michigan Mechanical Code, the Michigan Electrical Code, or the Michigan Plumbing Code. And when you go down to the second version of that, it says order issued pursuant to the Michigan Building Code, Michigan Mechanical Code. You missed a "the" right there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. If it wasn't an ordinance, I wouldn't care that much. Okay, that was all I had on that one.
We'll get that fixed before publishing in the paper, I promise.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Yep. Councilmember Cummins?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Great. You're on to reports by the City Council.
Ryan, you want to start?
No, I think we're going late enough. I want some cake, and,
Okay, good.
but we still have some substance to cover tonight. So.
I'll make it real short. I just want to say thank you to the DPW guys out there fixing all the potholes. They've been doing a fantastic job. I had a chance to sit and talk to them, and they're right on it, doing as much as they can. And if you do see a pothole, if you do see anything, see, click, fix, make sure you guys out there use it, because they do clock it, they do follow it, and if you want to follow it yourself, you can do it. And also, I want to say thank you to Detroit Tigers for winning on my day. And I want to say thank you for the Detroit Tigers for winning for Pat today. So we're all great. I mean, we just need to have a birthday every day they play, and they'll keep winning. And I want to say thank you to all of our people that work for the city of Grand Haven. I mean, they do a fantastic job, and they just got to keep it up.
I don't have anything except what I said about on Wednesday morning. I believe Congressman Meyer, but certainly a member of Congressman Meyer's staff is coming, and we're going to take them just for a ride out to Harbor Island to take a look at where the island is with relation to the water. Because I think, in that sense, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So. That's all I got. Pat?
I just want to start by thanking you guys for a lot of time spent tonight listening to the the different presentations we had. They were pretty involved and a lot of material absorbed, but we did such a great job. The diesel plant guys, the HDR presentation, Matt Wade standing up here, and Matt did that presentation at a staff meeting. I said, that is good stuff. You need to share that with City Council because they are on their game. They know what they're doing. They pay very close attention to all those roads and the condition of the roads. That's also hidden from the public and hidden from you guys unless they come here and share it. So I appreciate your patience with all that. Paid parking, it was 2019 when we had a proposal. We were proposing going to a paid parking system to try to raise revenue for the city for various reasons. We had an awful lot of concern about that, so we set up a committee to get together and go through all of the reasons why it would be a good thing, a bad thing, but mostly look at, what would it look like if we did it? Where would it be? How much would it cost? And how would we address the very real concerns people had about how it could be a bad thing to have paid parking in downtown and at our waterfront. So we spent a great deal of time, and we very deliberately included on the task force people who were overtly opposed to having paid parking. We wanted them there so we could ask them, well, why is it? What is it that makes this a bad thing? So we could talk about all those things and come up with ways to solve those headaches. And one big one was the local people who are our regular customers that want to come down here and shop, and they're not going to want to come down here if they have to pay for parking. Well, we can whitelist those people. They can have a free pass if they're excuse me. You can assign attributes and use the newer software systems that are used to be able to give free parking to people just by entering their license number into the system. So anybody that pays a tax bill, for example, could get 2 license plates, and they can just turn in that information and they park for free anytime they come downtown. Merchants could get codes that change daily, but they could get those codes so that they could give customers validation codes. So they just enter that code into their phone and it covers their parking. People who just want to drop in, who's going to drop in for a $2 cup of coffee and pay $3 to park? Well, first 15 minutes is free. So we talked about all those things and how can we overcome those concerns, and we did, and we talked about what we would make as a recommendation. So we brought that recommendation forward to the DDA. They talked about it. They got a considerable amount of loud feedback from people, but looked at all the ways we had come up with solutions to the problems people had with it, and they voted unanimously to recommend to City Council that we move forward with paid parking downtown and at the waterfront. And I've given you a summary of all those meetings that were held back in 2019 and what that recommendation was, just to bring it back to life today. The reason it stalled was because we had COVID hit. And right as we were ready to roll it out and recommend it, the whole economy shut down and downtown shut down. And it seemed like, well, this probably isn't a good time to bring this forward and say, well, now we're going to start charging people to come downtown. Well, we put it on the back burner, and now it's come back. We're looking for ways to raise revenue, to raise meaningful revenue, and this could raise meaningful revenue. We're looking at our neighbors to the north, and they are raising considerable money, charging just down at Pierre Marquette Beach. So we're thinking we could do a similar job here and raise in the higher 6-figure range if we were to implement paid parking. That equals more than 1 mil of property tax. So, that's what I'm coming forward with now, to reintroduce this to city council. I brought it up at the last DDA meeting and said this didn't go away, it just got put in hibernation, and it remains a growing revenue source for Michigan's municipalities, for places, and we can come up with a way. There seems to be an ongoing desire, how do we get the tourist economy to help pay for itself? It costs us a lot of money to keep everything in the condition we keep it in, our parks, our public safety services. A great deal of it is here because we need to staff up and be ready for all those guests we get and present our best foot forward all the time, and that's very costly. So how do we do that? And it's not an easy formula. Well, one way to do it, if we get, we did a study back in 2016, we had 2.2 million people visit our boardwalk. If you cut that in half, figure, well, half of those are local people coming downtown. You've got that other half, over 1 million people. If you charge them $1 each for the whole summer, everybody pays $1, basically, that's what we're talking about. That's how you get to them, is by asking them to pay a few bucks to park when they come and visit us. So it's somewhat of a sublime solution to a very big problem. We come up with a significant, sustainable revenue source, and we've been talking for a long time about Michigan municipalities and having our past history of the way we got funded. A big share of state sales tax sharing has gone away. They've taken that away from us, and they've not replaced it. They've capped our ability to levy property taxes, and they've not given it back. They've taken away personal property taxes, and they haven't fully replaced that. So every time we turn around, we're being asked to do more, and our revenue sources are being drawn back. So it forces us to look at these things. I don't know if you've been watching the West Michigan press, but the city of Wyoming is looking at putting an income tax on the ballot, in lieu of property taxes. So there's various ways we can go about this. This is one. So I'm just putting it forward, and I'm recommending it in the budget that you received. It has a revenue source for paid parking. If you decide not to go with paid parking, we're going to have to come up with a way to address that shortfall. And one way to do it would be, we're recommending a $0.5 mil deduction in your property taxes next year. We're going down a $0.5 mil. If we don't have an appetite for paid parking, we may want to consider putting that $0.5 mil back on so we can make up that shortfall. And that's truly a good way to present it, to tell the property taxpayers, well, we either pay it here or we pay it there. There's two different places to get it. And this is one way to present that. So I just wanted to present that tonight here at the end of the meeting. The 2022-23 budget, again, I'm sure you'll be talking about it next week, Monday?
Monday.
Yeah, so I'll look forward to getting into it more then. It's a considerable report in your packet. I apologize for the length of it. It's a lot of pages, but we worked through it, and each time there were new concerns brought up, we said, well, can we deal with that fear, that concern that you have that this is going to be a really horrible thing, and how do we do it? And many other towns have done it, and since we had those discussions, many other towns have come online and started charging for parking. So we could update our numbers. We've provided some numbers from South Haven, Petoskey, other communities, Traverse City, what they collect, how they collect it, how much they collect, just for you to have some comparisons. So sorry about that lengthy report this late at night, but I did want to get to that quickly here at the end of the meeting. Oh, and finally, Cycle to Centertown. They would like to have an event on May 7th, and they've been talking about it for some time, and the proposal came in at such a time, we try to get our agendas out much earlier now, so that deadline for the agenda was too quick for us to get staff review done and get it on tonight's agenda. This agenda was presented to you guys last Monday, so we do it a full week in advance now. So that's one of the shortcomings of trying to expand that time. So these things happen, and I think it's not a big deal. If you would have had 4 people here tonight, I was going to ask you to place it on the agenda, and I'd like to feel more comfortable about doing that in the future when you've got a fairly direct and relatively simple request. Public safety is going to be involved. I did hear back from Public Works already, and they said they have no problem with it. Very easy to bring down the barricades and get the parking orders posted and take care of the things that they need to take care of. So I'm planning on telling the organizers that you're okay with us. I think the city council is well aware of it. I have not gotten any concerns from anybody, so I think it's a go. And although you can't vote on it tonight because you couldn't add it to the agenda,
We're not voting.
I know you're not voting, but And if Joyce stayed here the whole night, and
Joyce.
I'm very grateful to her for elevating this. And youth safety and bicycling is a pretty big deal. For them to pick this up like they did and engage our public safety like they did is just such a huge gesture and a thing that really helps us to get our job done. It saves us money because now we're not having to do a big bike rally or something and give away bike helmets. They're doing it for us, so I'm really grateful for this.
So we're gonna get it on the agenda for the next meeting to get officially approved. But conceptually, I think there's a lot of support at city council right now. So if that helps, is that
10-4,
sufficient?
that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay,
Oh.
is that it?
I can call the audience, right?
Yeah. All right, we've got a second call to the audience. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address and will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call may do so by dialing 616-935-3285. If it continues ringing, please remain on the line until your turn.
Joyce Workman, I own Vintage Green, 7 North 7th. I also serve on the R&R, and I'm on the executive committee of the Main Street Board. So, Mayor, council member, and Pat, I think I have a housekeeping question. So, when I first did Flea on 7th, which would be my 7th year, but COVID, I didn't know all of this. I didn't know that things came to city councils. I didn't know there was a consent agenda. I didn't know. And no one told me. So the first year I did it, no one knew who I was. I hadn't organized anything. Centertown wasn't meeting as a group. And I didn't realize, so I missed a meeting to come talk about it. And I had a council member who said, if you don't come to the meetings, we don't vote, etc. But you don't know what you don't know. Okay? So that ended up being a really bumpy start for me to do special events here. And I still want you to know the process is bumpy. And I organize Flea on 7th by myself. That's not a Main Street event. Cycle Back to Centertown, Chow Down Centertown, Santa and Centertown, those are all Main Street events too. So fortunately, you know, Jeremy is telling me about this, etc. And now I kind of know the drill. But here's the irony. I got here tonight and didn't know that Flea on 7th was going to be on the consent agenda. Thankful I'm on the consent agenda. I'm thankful I've done it for 6 years, and I believe there's a track record that it's successful. But what if? And I just had a conversation with the gentleman who's doing the Jeep Fest, and I've had conversations with Shile, who does Merchants and Makers, and I've had conversations with Brad, who does art, and. I really would love to see the event process shored up. There should be a 411 guide. I'm dating myself. Call 411, get a phone number. I've offered to help with that. I don't think it's difficult for me to pay $150 and have you to cash the check right away, but then have no one call me back to say it's on the consent agenda. If I know it, I'll be here. I'm responsible, but I can't be here if I don't know it. So I just, again, maybe I just need to be the squeaky wheel. This is a wonderful place. People love to come here, but it's not easy to do events here. And we need to fix that, because I would love to do more events in Centertown, but it's a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
I'm Doug Vance from the Copper Post at 100 Washington. Pat, I appreciate you bringing up parking tonight. I'm not the only one. And I would also appreciate any council member getting back to me. I've submitted a letter to you all, to the previous council members. Nobody has even had the courtesy to get back with me and say, well, what are your concerns? As I said last council meeting when I spoke, is okay, to heck with the owners, to heck with the employees. We employ right now about 26 people. In the summer, that grows to 60. Okay, to heck with all those people. But we have 17 residents of the city of Grand Haven that live at 100 Washington, and I disagree with you, Pat. We already have paid parking because I have personally taken on the task of paying their parking tickets for them when they complain to me. I've done that for employees. I've done it for myself. There is absolutely no reason in my mind why we have the 3-hour parking limit set where it's set. I did an excursion. Nodos doesn't have to worry about 3-hour parking. Their employees don't have to worry about 3-hour parking. All they have to worry about is trying to find a place to park, which is everybody in downtown Grand Haven in the summer. I'm not asking for designated parking spots. All I'm asking is these people are paying $120 a year for a permit so that they can park overnight. Can't we instruct public safety that if you see a parking permit on their car, that means they are a resident, that means they've paid the 120, or up it to 200 or 250 or 5,000, I'd at least give them the option to purchase something so they don't have to say, oh, I need to run out and move my car because and now it's after 8 o'clock and I got to get my car moved because it's been there all night. I can guarantee you, I can show you pictures where I drive in the morning to the Copper Post to work in the summer, and that parking lot is empty because people say, oops, that's right, I can't park by where I live. I've got to find someplace else to park, so nobody is parking there. All I'm asking is, these are residents. Don't worry about me, don't worry about employees. Just worry about the residents that you've been elected to represent. They are paying for parking. And yeah, it's a simple solution, just go move your car. What if we pass a resolution you can't park in your driveway any place in Grand Haven and see how everybody else likes it? That building has been there for 150 years. I don't know about grandfather clauses and all that, but I'm about ready to find out. Because that, I mean, maybe they got to ride horses and tie them to the posts. You know, would that be satisfactory? Anyway, please, they're paying $120. Let them park wherever they can find a spot without having to get a ticket. Thank you.
One more. Jim Hagan, 400 Lake. Listening to the CL Lakewood presentation, there was discussion that the amount had changed. Just to let you know, the amount in the buy-sell is $1 million. It's not more than $1 million. It's been $1 million since June 16, 2021, in the memo that Mr. Holcomb wrote to Mr. McGinnis. So
yeah, I think, Jim, what he was saying was it came up to $1 million. It did change.
It's been there since, in the memo, June 16th, 2021.
Yeah. Yes, but that wasn't the original offers, what he was saying.
Okay, so they're at $1 million still?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Lori Kelly, 1813 Doris. I did send council and the city a diagram of how much of that deck is on the roof on Nodos. It's on the steel roof, 2/3 of it. The other third goes from the roof of the outdoor bar over to their upstairs dining room bar area. That's their waiting room for customers when the restaurant is full. They send people upstairs to that bar area. Those people are going to go out on that deck every night because there's a door right to it. And the consent agreement does not allow for any public service anywhere else on that property other than the original deck that the Nodos, or the Bilmar had, and that the Nodos have. So if you have any questions about it, I've sent pictures, I've sent diagrams, I can send more. My husband climbed like 4 cottages to try and take the best pictures for you. So if it's helpful, I can show you more
I'm gonna go by and take a look, which I
Okay,
should have
thank
already
you.
done.
Good idea.
Thank you so much for spending all this time and Pat's birthday here as well. I wonder, the question, that I have is Highland Park. Is there any type of restrictions in regards to rooftops at Highland Park? Okay, the consent judgment was in 2007, and in 2018, we abided by all of those things. If you look upstairs, our upstairs event space, how it is that we have to be able to compete, diesel plant, other venues, that's not a problem. We believe in free competition, competitive cooperative marketing, competition working cooperative to do better business. What they were saying is right. Bringing more people to this community during the off season is what their goal is. That's what our goal has been. We're not like the old Bill Maher closed most of the time. We're still open during the off season and probably one of the busier restaurants, and trying to make other restaurants busy as well. So when I look out to Highland Park and I see all of these balconies and decks, that's what this is. Our original plan that we drew, that was approved by the 2017, 2018 consent agreement, was exactly that. We have a picture on our light post that shows what that was, basically a balcony that was going to be not enclosed, but we decided to enclose it for whatever reason. Now we're just offering to extend it. So if it comes down to, in terms of what that thought is or what that reason is, and because the fact that we're actually addressing the incompleteness of what that building is, by coming from the south and completing it with windows and the proper type of things other than the generic vinyl siding, it's going to enhance that look, and it's going to provide us the diversity to be able to compete. And when the road comes and there's construction and we have to come up with a plan in order to be able to exist, what do? We're doing the best we can, honestly. We're not looking to create any obstruction or not abide by the consent judgment. It's there. We need to abide by it. But again, that originally was built or designed when the building that Howard was going to build was going to be moved forward to be able to have that particular thing, the crosswalk. We'll do whatever we need to do in order to be able to accommodate or make it safe. But there's been no violations. There's been no noise restrictions. It's people on the beach, people having fun, people coming to the resort and thanking us for what we've done. It's not a rooftop. It's a balcony. But if we need to enclose it, we will. We still have, time, I guess, but it's not going to be something that's necessarily used in order to be able to make more seats or make more business. It's diversity in terms of our space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I think we're done. And this meeting's adjourned.